Chapter 2558. At this point, Gu Yu hesitated a little and reminded. However, the sword tomb is not suitable for cultivators to go. If Senior goes there, you have to be careful. And this old man knows. Xiaohua nodded. Then this junior will take her leave. Gu Yu urged the flying sword again. Wait. Xiaohua's mind moved and said urgently. Gu Yu frowned, but she didn't dare to flare up. She only asked, Does Senior have any other instructions? This old man wants to ask. You blocked Huanhua Sect's magic weapon. Do you have other thoughts? Xiaohua asked with a smile. This? Gu Yu didn't understand. Xiaohua was wearing a camouflage robe, so Gu Yu didn't know where he was looking. This junior really doesn't have other thoughts. Gu Yu shook her head. Then the Ganoderma horse? Xiaohua pointed his hand and asked. You don't have any thoughts? Hee, thank you, Senior, for reminding me. Gu Yu smiled sweetly and innocently. Junior indeed didn't think so much at that time. But if Senior wants to bestow a reward, it would be impolite for this junior to refuse. This item is also beneficial to my sword cultivation. Yes, now the Ganoderma horse was in Xiaohua's hands. Xiaohua mentioned it at this time. Of course he has the intention to reward her. Can the Ganoderma horse be eaten directly? Xiaohua asked. Or does your sword cultivation have a special secret technique? Gu Yu pursed her lips and smiled. Senior's idea is wrong. This junior needs this Ganoderma horse to refine pills or make medicine. Eating it alone is not good. It's even a waste of natural resources. Oh? Xiaohua hesitated. There were many spiritual herbs in his space. Not to mention 10,000 years old, 100,000 years old, 200,000 years old, but these spiritual herbs didn't have any spiritual wisdom. He was somewhat reluctant to destroy this Ganoderma horse. Seeing Xiaohua hesitate, Gu Yu immediately understood and smiled apologetically. Senior only needs to bestow some juice. There's no need to take the Ganoderma horse's life. Good. Xiaohua also understood and was about to take out the Ganoderma horse, but his heart was moved again. He turned his head and asked Zhonghauren, When you use the Ganoderma horse, is it also the same? All right, I'll let Senior know. Zhonghauren listened for a long time. When he heard Xiaohua suddenly ask him this question, he immediately bowed and said, That is indeed the case. One of Junior's senior apprentice sisters, previously, due to a lucky coincidence, she obtained a Heaven Mend pill. Relying on this spirit pill, she reached foundation establishment in one fell swoop, and her cultivation base was extremely fast. Junior and the others obtained a pill formula that can be used to refine a different type of spirit pill. Although this spirit pill can't compare to the Heaven Mend pill for us. And no need to say any more. Xiaohua nodded and looked at Gu Yu. What Zhonghauren said, do you know? Yes, this junior understands. Gu Yu's eyes lit up as if she understood something from Xiaohua's words. She hurriedly nodded and said, Although the Dao Sect's heaven-mending pill is used to mend meridians, it is also extremely beneficial to the physique of us sword cultivators. Even if this junior took the juice of the Ganoderma horse, the medicinal pill refined would still be inferior to the heaven-mending pill. If Senior has a medicinal pill similar to the heavenly mending pill, Junior can refuse the Ganoderma horse as a reward. Ha! What a smart lass! Xiaohua laughed heartily. With a wave of his hand, he took out a jade bottle and threw it to Gu Yu. This old man had just thought of it, and you could already sense it. You are indeed a dragon among sword cultivators. Many, many thanks, Senior. Gu Yu received the jade bottle and was extremely excited. She hurriedly thanked him, but when she opened the jade bottle, she frowned again. This ugly pill was a far cry from the heavenly mending pill that she knew of. However, the runes on the medicinal pill had a faint brilliance, and its essence was so restrained. It made her intuition tell her that this medicinal pill was not ordinary. Ha ha, little lass, if you don't want it, then this old man will not give it to you. Xiaohua laughed heartily when he saw the situation. This old man saw your benevolent heart, and also saved the Zhongling Mountain Villa's disciple. That's why I gave this item to you. Gu Yu was enlightened and no longer hesitated. She hurriedly kept the jade bottle and bowed. This junior thanks senior for the generous gift. This junior has obtained this medicinal pill. In the future, when my cultivation is successful, I will definitely remember today's matter and also remember this junior's oath. Good, Xiaohua said with a smile. The heavenly Tao is in the human heart. Whatever you say, the heavenly Tao is listening. You have a kind heart, and the heavenly Tao is kind. This is the will of the heavens. You don't have to thank me. Yes, this junior understands. This junior will take her leave. Gu Yu said goodbye again. Right. Xiaohua patted his forehead again. Gu Yu did not frown this time. She was very happy and laughed. Senior, do you have any other instructions? It turned out that when Gu Yu said goodbye, her figure did not move. She seemed to know that Xiaohua would speak again. Ha! Xiaohua laughed again. He patted his storage bag and took out a jade bottle. Little lass and this old man are fated. This item is for you. However, do not mention it to others. What is this? Gu Yu took the jade bottle. It was another ugly medicinal pill. She really did not understand. Face-retaining pill! Xiaohua knew that Gu Yu might not know about the auction in Sky Patrol City. He could only transmit his voice. What? This is a face-retaining pill? As calm as Gu Yu, when she heard that she had a face-retaining pill in her hand, she also exclaimed. She had long lost her usual calmness. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. He transmitted his voice to her. Wasn't it to let her keep quiet? Even if there were only Zhong Haoren and the other 4 people around, this face-retaining pill was very likely to be related to the rejuvenation pill. Xiaohua did not want to leave any clues behind. And this is the item, Xiaohua said with a smile. This old man was in Tongmu City more than 10 years ago. I competed with the people and bid for this item. However, this old man has no use for it. Today, I will give it to you. Alas, youth is fleeting, brilliance is hard to stay. I hope this little lass can stay pure forever. Many, many thanks, senior. Gu Yu's face was slightly red. However, the shyness in her eyes could not suppress the surprise in her eyes. If Xiaohua and the others were not here, she was afraid that she would have swallowed it in one gulp. All right, little lass, you can go now. Xiaohua saw that Gu Yu actually stopped in midair and still did not leave. He said with a smile. This old man does not have any more good things here. Yes, this junior is truly grateful to senior. Only I do not know. Gu Yu summoned up her courage and said, Only I do not know if senior can bestow a name. Obviously, Gu Yu was truly grateful. No need. Xiaohua opened his mouth and said, not transmitting his voice. You and I have met by chance. Moreover, there is a difference between Dao and sword. I am afraid that we will not meet again in the future. Whether or not I know your name has nothing to do with it. Gu Yu's face was full of disappointment. Biting her lips, Xiaohua's unusually young face inexplicably appeared in her mind. It seemed that from the moment she saw his battle, the trajectory of her life had already changed. These words, even if it was said by Xiaohua, it was also extremely appropriate. This junior is leaving. Gu Yu hesitated. She was about to urge her body to leave, as if she was expecting Xiaohua to call her again. Be careful on the road. Xiaohua no longer spoke to urge her to stay. Many thanks, senior. Gu Yu's face showed a trace of disappointment. I forgot. Just as Gu Yu flew for about 10 feet, Xiaohua's gaze swept across the ground where Zhong Haoren's flying sword was destroyed by the Huanhua sect disciple. Suddenly his heart moved and he hurriedly said, Little girl, please wait. Yes, senior. Do you have any other orders? Gu Yu cheerfully flew back. Unexpectedly, she was extremely happy. Hee, the last sentence. Xiaohua pointed his finger at Zhong Haoren and said, This is Zhong Haoren from Zhongling Mountain Village. You two meeting today can be considered as fate. Moreover, this old man observed that Zhong Haoren also practiced flying swords. If there is any opportunity in the future, you two can learn from each other. How about it? Gu Yu's face showed slight astonishment. There was also a trace of disappointment. Looking left and right at the 5 people, she nodded and said, Since this is Senior's order, if there is an opportunity in the future, this Junior can give some guidance. Mrs. Life-Saving Grace, this Zhong will never forget it. How could Zhong Haoren not understand? He hurriedly bowed and said, However, this Zhong's cultivation is shallow and it is difficult to repay. Now I can only remember it in my heart, and hope that there will be an opportunity in the future to repay. No need! Gu Yu flicked her sleeve and said, This senior has already repaid the favor of saving you all. If there is an opportunity in the future, you can come to the Void Heaven Sword School. This sword will definitely fulfill her promise to the senior. Immediately, Gu Yu looked at Xiaohua and said, This junior will be leaving now. And Xiaohua smiled and said, This old man has nothing else to do. Little girl, quickly go back. Sure enough, this time, Gu Yu flew for several hundred zhang. Seeing that Xiaohua didn't call for her, Gu Yu had no choice but to urge her invisible sword to quickly fly away. Junior Zhong Haoren once again thanks Senior. After Gu Yu left, Zhong Haoren knew that a mere sword cultivator could obtain so many benefits from this senior. He and the others were cultivators of the Dao sect, so how could they not benefit from this senior? He immediately bowed and thanked him again. The 4 10th layer Qi refining disciples also hurriedly bowed. Strange. Xiaohua looked at Zhong Haoren and asked, Haoren, this Xiao remembers that you didn't practice flying swords before? Why did you suddenly use a flying sword? Ah? When Zhong Haoren heard Xiaohua address him so intimately, he was already greatly alarmed. When Xiaohua addressed himself as this Xiao, he almost cried tears of joy. With a voice of disbelief, he called out, Xiao. Martial Uncle Xiao? Nonsense, of course it's this Xiao. As Xiaohua spoke, he removed the mist and said with a smile, That sword cultivator was here just now. This Xiao didn't dare to be too ostentatious. Who would have thought that when Xiaohua revealed his true face, without waiting for Zhong Haoren to speak, those 4 10th layer Qi refining disciples looked as if they were struck by lightning. Their eyes emitted a crazed expression. Plop, plop, plop. 4 times in a row, the 4 of them actually all knelt on the ground and said with their heads bowed, this lowly one, kowtows to Taoist Xiao. So much so that a slightly younger disciple was practically clenching his fist. His body was trembling as he shouted somewhat hysterically. This lowly one was able to see Taoist Zhao's true face in this lifetime. Even if this lowly one dies today, I have no regrets. Another disciple also shouted, This lowly one was just silently calling Taoist Zhao's name in my heart, and Taoist Xiao immediately flew over to save this lowly one. Taoist Xiao is indeed a supreme Taoist. Where did this all come from? Xiaohua saw the 4 people lose their composure like this and was startled in his heart. He then bitterly smiled and looked at Zhong Haoren. Haoren, what's going on? -9. Chapter 2559. Xiaohua knew that he didn't use the title of Taoist Master Xiao much. Apart from Zhangqi Xiao, he only used it in Zhongling Villa. Only Zhong Haoren could explain this. Who would have thought that Zhong Haoren was also shocked? He also looked at the 4 people strangely, not knowing why they worshipped Xiaohua so much. As for Xiaohua's question, Zhong Haoren could only smile bitterly and answer awkwardly. Reporting to Martial Uncle Xiao, this junior really doesn't know. However, from their tone, I'm afraid they know about Martial Uncle Zhao's deeds. Moreover, all the people of Yunqing, Jiqing, Fancheng, and other places in Ming country are indebted to Martial Uncle Zhao's grace. At this point, Zhong Haoren's heart moved and he said with pleasant surprise, Junior understands. These aura refining disciples are indebted to Martial Uncle. Oh? Is that so? Xiaohua was somewhat puzzled. When he was in the barren mountains of Ming country, he saw the desolation and discovered the fine seeds. Then, he spread the fine seeds throughout the 3 countries and saved countless people. However, based on this matter, it had only been 10 years, right? those children couldn't have cultivated to the 10th layer of aura refining all of a sudden, right? If that was the case, Xiaohua would have eaten it himself. Why would he need to work so hard? All of you, get up! Xiaohua smiled and waved his hand, hinting the 4 disciples to get up from the ground. As for the 4 disciples, except for their loss of composure when they first saw Xiaohua, they didn't even dare to say a word. They only looked at Xiaohua respectfully and listened to Xiaohua ask Zhonghaoren. At this moment, hearing Xiaohua's command, the 4 hurriedly got up and stood with their hands hanging down. Their eyes were filled with worship. Seeing this scene, Xiaohua was somewhat enlightened. Just now, all of his words were directed at Zhonghaoren. These disciples didn't dare to interrupt him and simply wouldn't answer. If he were to ask them, he would have already known the answer. What's your name? Xiaohua smiled and looked at the slightly tall disciple with extremely dark skin. This junior is Fei Yunshu. The disciple was extremely respectful. He didn't slack off just because he had already introduced himself, and answered word by word. Oh, so you're a disciple of Fan City's Fei family? Xiaohua nodded. Taoist master knows, Fei Yunshu replied. Yes. Xiaohua glanced at Zhonghaoren. He had killed Fei Xiqing at Zhongling Mountain Villa that day, but he had let Qin Kai go. As for whether the Fei family of Ji City belonged to Zhongling Mountain Villa or Qin Kai, or whether Qin Kai had been destroyed and the Qin family of Fan City had been swallowed into Zhongling Mountain Villa, he was too lazy to ask. How do you know this Xiao's appearance, or are you so respectful towards this Xiao? Xiaohua asked with a smile. Hearing Xiaohua's question, Fei Yunshu's face lit up with excitement, and he replied respectfully. This humble one has a statue of Taoist Xiao in his home. Although the statue's carving isn't detailed enough, this little brother can recognize the real person at a glance. This time, when I return home, I must carve the statue more vividly. At home? Xiaohua frowned. Yes, this humble one is a distant relative of the Fei family. That year, during the Great Wilderness, this humble one was sent out and didn't know that there was a disaster at home. When this humble one returned home and saw that the road was barren, I was already flustered. I thought that I would never see the 37 members of my family again. However, when this humble one finally managed to return home, I discovered that everyone in the family had eaten Taoist Zhao's rice during the disaster. That was how they survived. Every single one of them kowtowed to Taoist Zhao's statue in the morning and at night, offering incense to the statue. Xiaohua frowned and asked curiously, Fei Yunshu, you've already refined qi, why is your family still so poor? I'll let Taoist Xiao know. Fei Yunshu replied without hesitation. This humble one had only just reached the 3rd layer of qi refining at that time, and could only enter the Fei family. Besides, our blood relations with the Fei family were too distant. This humble one had already spent a lot of money to enter the Fei family, and this humble one couldn't cultivate, so he couldn't help the family much. What? You were only at the 3rd layer of qi refining at that time? Not only was Xiaohua flabbergasted, even Zhonghaoren was shocked. It had only been a dozen years, and this Fei Yunshu had actually cultivated from the 3rd layer of qi refining to the 10th layer of qi refining. How could this be? This Fei Yunshu was a cultivation genius. This was all thanks to Taoist Zhao's great kindness. Fei Yunshu said anxiously. This humble one's aptitude wasn't good at that time. Even in the Fei family, I was only a 3rd-rate cultivator. However, when this humble one returned home and saw that not only was everyone in the family alive, but there were also a few of my nephews with excellent aptitudes, an idea came to my mind. When this humble one heard my family's gratitude to Taoist Xiao, this humble one knelt in front of Taoist Zhao's statue and prayed. As a result, this humble one received Taoist Zhao's guidance. Under the condition of fasting, this humble one ate the Taoist Zhao's immortal seeds. Thus, this humble one's cultivation didn't have any bottlenecks, and I cultivated all the way to the 10th layer of qi refining. Ah? There's such a thing? Xiaohua was stunned again. Yes, this humble one didn't dare to say too much about this matter. If this humble one didn't see Taoist Xiao in person today, this humble one definitely wouldn't have revealed it. Fei Yunchu's eyes fell on Xiaohua, ignoring Zhong Haoren and the others. Xiaohua looked at the other three people. Their eyes were flickering with fanaticism, as if they were extremely respectful towards Xiaohua. Thus, he asked, "What about the three of you? This humble one's name is Zhong Pei, a distant branch of the Zhong family." A slightly pale disciple with delicate features hurriedly replied, "This humble one's family isn't as poor as junior marshal brother Fei's family. My family didn't worship Taoist Xiao before. However, this humble one was seriously injured and was stranded in the wilderness. There were some commoners there who worshipped Taoist Xiao. This humble one ate Taoist Xiao's immortal seeds, and my injuries were greatly healed. Even my cultivation had a breakthrough. Thus, this humble one asked for Taoist Xiao's statue from the commoners and hid it close to my body. Every day, I would worship it and eat a lot of rice. Thus, this humble one's cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds." As he spoke, he carefully took out a silk ribbon from his neck. Sure enough, there was a small person inside. Looking at his appearance, his phoenix eyes and sword-like eyebrows were indeed somewhat similar to Xiaohua's. "Granny, is this young master really that godly?" Xiaohua pinched his nose. It was very strange. He really didn't think that the rice he planted in his space could actually have such an effect. "You two are waiting for?" Xiaohua asked again. He knew that if he didn't ask, they definitely wouldn't say anything. "This humble one is Qin Ji. I live in Jiqing, but I'm not related to the Qin family by blood." Another extremely simple and honest disciple said, "This humble one's experience is similar to that of senior brother Fei. However, the difference is that this humble one went home to visit his family and saw that his nephew was only 4 years old. He could actually understand the qi refining method that this humble one accidentally obtained. He could even easily draw qi into his body. However, when this humble one recommended this nephew to Jiqing, the martial uncle who tested his physique said that this nephew's aptitude was not good enough and he couldn't cultivate. Thus, this humble one asked someone to let this nephew enter Zhongling Mountain Village. Finally, this humble one found the miracle of Taoist Xiao in his home. It turned out that this nephew was born after his sister used Taoist Zhao's immortal seed. This humble one tried to use the immortal seed and worship Taoist Xiao. And this humble one understands." Xiaohua nodded and asked again, "Then, what about the other nephews in your family? This humble one has 2 nephews. Although they are very smart, they don't seem to have an immortal fate like this nephew," Qinji said without hiding anything. "What about you?" Xiaohua looked at the last disciple, who was a little short and fat. This humble one's name is Zhong Zhan." The disciple's face was a little red as he whispered, "This humble one has always been bad at fasting and often takes secular things from time to time. Later, this humble one was also curious. After taking Taoist Zhao's immortal seed, my cultivation improved greatly. Only then did I really worship Taoist Xiao. So that's how it is." Xiaohua nodded slightly, waved his hand and said, "This humble one's giving of good seeds is the virtue of the heavens. The heavens borrowed this humble one's hand to save the common people. You all have this opportunity and can see the way to progress. It is also the will of the heavens. This has nothing to do with this humble one. Fellow Taoists worshipping this humble one like this really makes this humble one panic. Taoist Xiao." Hearing Xiaohua's words, Zhong Haoren was a little puzzled. However, the faces of Zhong Zhan and the others changed greatly. With a few putong sounds, they fell to the ground again and anxiously said, "Taoist Xiao, are you despising this humble one? If Taoist Xiao thinks that we shouldn't cultivate and shouldn't have this opportunity, then this humble one will cripple our cultivation. Don't. Xiaohua hurriedly raised his hand and used heaven and earth and the sleeve to cover the 4 people. He was really afraid that these 4 people would suddenly attack and scatter his magic power. This humble one only thinks that this humble one has only done some extremely insignificant things for the sake of the heavens. If other ordinary people mistakenly think that this humble one is some Taoist Xiao, then so be it. After all, they don't know the truth. Xiao Hua patiently explained. But fellow Taoists have already stepped into the 10th level of qi refining, and foundation establishment is just around the corner. And this humble one is only a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator. If I were to be worshipped by you all, wouldn't I become the laughingstock of others? Taoist Xiao is lacking. Fei Yunshu was the most devout. Now that he saw Xiao Hua deny him, he couldn't help but become anxious and argued. If Taoist Xiao is a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator, how could you easily drive away a middle-stage foundation establishment Huanhua sect disciple? How could you make the sword cultivators of Huan country be respectful to you? Besides, when this humble one saw that danger was imminent, I immediately prayed for Taoist Xiao in my heart. And Taoist Xiao immediately drove his sword over. If this isn't the power of a Taoist Xiao, then what is it? Right, Senior Marshal Brother Fei is right. Qinji also kowtowed and said, This humble one also prayed just now, hoping that Taoist Xiao would be able to rescue this humble one from the hands of these vicious Huanhua sect disciples. And if Taoist Xiao really did come, this humble one will no longer worship Taoist Xiao in the future. How can I be worthy of Taoist Xiao's rescue? This humble one can't control what others think. Fei Yunshu said sincerely. This humble one's family of dozens of people worship Taoist Xiao in order to survive. Not allowing this humble one to worship you is impossible. Taoist Xiao. Hearing this, Zhong Haoren also knelt on the ground and kowtowed, saying, Others don't know Taoist Xiao's divine ability, but how could this humble one not know? Actually, this humble one was also silently praying in his heart. When Taoist Xiao appeared just now, this humble one already had some premonition in his heart. However, to be honest with Taoist Xiao, this humble one really didn't dare to believe it just now. After all, this is too miraculous. But now, it seems that this humble one and the others' piety was able to summon Taoist Xiao. In the future, this humble one will also be like them, worshipping Taoist Xiao in my heart. -9. Chapter 2560. Haoren, Xiaohua was suddenly pushed to the altar by others. He felt somewhat uncomfortable and said with a bitter smile, Don't you feel that worshipping a cultivator with a similar cultivation level as you is very unnatural? Moreover, no matter how high this Zhao's cultivation level is, in the future you will still have the opportunity to cultivate to this Zhao's current cultivation level, or even surpass this Xiao. At that time, will others also have to worship you? Taoist Xiao, Zhong Haoren said sincerely. This lowly one has cultivated to this point completely by relying on Taoist Zhao's strength. This lowly one knows that without Taoist Xiao, this lowly one would still be a qi refining cultivator and would absolutely have no chance to set foot into foundation establishment. Not only that, even if this lowly one has Taoist Zhao's cultivation level, this lowly one does not have Taoist Zhao's heart, does not have the compassion of the world, and does not have the magical ability to save thousands of people from water and fire. Therefore, this lowly one can say that in this world, only Taoist Xiao can worship, even if Taoist Xiao is only a foundation establishment cultivator. As for other cultivators, even if they are nascent soul cultivators, they are only our teachers, not the Taoist we should worship. Taoist Xiao! Qin Ji and Fei Yinshu shouted. Please accept this lowly one's worship. Unfortunately, these four people were restrained by Xiao Hua's heaven and earth sleeve. Although they could speak, they could not worship him. Hearing the words of the five people, Xiao Hua's heart was also shaken. The Buddhist fire in his Buddhist heart flickered slightly, seemingly echoing. Could it be that this is really a magical ability? After Xiao Hua sensed it, he was somewhat surprised. After thinking for a while, he made a decision. Damn it, if this young master continues to refuse, this young master will really be suspected of selling dog meat under a sheep's head. If this young master did not want to have a false reputation, this young master would not have mentioned his name when the people of the secular world wanted to worship him. Even when the Zhongling Mountain Villa and the heavenly demon sect scattered spirit seeds everywhere, this young master would not have mentioned his name. Now that Taoist Zhao's name has been spread out, And there really are people coming to worship this young master. This young master has to pretend to push them out. Is this interesting? Forget it. Xiao Hua made a decision. He immediately waved his Taoist robe and laughed loudly. This Xiao is wrong. The human heart is the most back, the common people are the heavenly Tao. Since the heavenly Tao wants to borrow this young master's hand to save the common people, this young master. What's the harm? Thank you, spiritual master Xiao. Seeing Xiao Hua agree, Zhong Haoren and the others were overjoyed. They kowtowed 9 times before standing up. Good! Xiao Hua clapped his hands, took out 5 jade bottles, and handed them over to Zhong Haoren. You can't just greet me for nothing. Here, each of you will get 1 heaven-mending pill. Thank you, spiritual master. Zhong Haoren was overjoyed. He respectfully stepped forward to receive it, and then distributed it to everyone. How could Fei Yunshu and the others not know what the heavenly mending pill was? Seeing that Taoist master Xiao, whom he regarded as a deity, had once again bestowed him with a spirit pill, his heart was filled with boundless gratitude. Choked with sobs, she couldn't even say the word, thank you. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly when he saw Fei Yunshu and the others shed tears of gratitude. However, he immediately felt a trace of pride in his heart. Xiao Hua rarely gave things to others, but when he did give things to others, they were all extremely good things. If one were to think about it, which cultivator would be able to shed tears of gratitude like these 4? This wasn't just a simple shedding tears of gratitude, but rather a level of worship towards Xiao Hua as if he were a god. In the entire Dawn Rain continent, how many cultivators could do this? Xiao Hua naturally had a reason to be proud. Suddenly, Xiao Hua's heart moved again. He had an idea that he had never thought of before. Thank you, spiritual master! Fei Yunshu came to his senses and blurted out again. Yunshu! Xiao Hua said faintly. Since this is something bestowed by this spiritual master, you should have it. In the future, don't mention the word thank you. Yes, spiritual master. This little one understands. Fei Yunshu's heart trembled, and he hurriedly replied. Xiao Hua swept his gaze over the others and asked. Just now you all said that the baby who ate this spiritual master's immortal seed would have excellent aptitudes, right? Yes, spiritual master knows. Qinji hurriedly said. This little one has specially inquired. Boy who ate the immortal seed was more flexible and intelligent than the babies this little one had seen before. But when it comes to aptitudes, right? Not necessarily. Just like this little one's nephew, his physique isn't suitable for cultivation, but his cultivation method is far superior to ordinary people. Maybe. At this point, Qinji was somewhat hesitant. Zhong Haoren said, Spiritual master, this little one thinks that our Zhong family's method of physique testing might not be able to test the physique of the babies cultivated by spiritual master's immortal seed. Correct. That's exactly the case. Xiao Hua instantly understood. Now that the world's spiritual energy had changed, his immortal seed was able to adapt to the current world's spiritual energy after being cultivated by the space. Moreover, the babies who ate this rice had also adapted to the current world's spiritual energy. In this changed world's spiritual energy, it was more suitable for cultivation. Of course, the original method of testing babies was no longer suitable. More suitable testing methods for these babies were needed. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua recalled the time when he was in the Imperial Thunder sect. He helplessly said to Xianyang that when Zhenlei Palace was selecting disciples, they often found that the disciples with great potential didn't have any special progress after being accepted into the sect. Some disciples who didn't perform well at that time actually advanced by leaps and bounds after being accepted into the sect. This was probably the reason. And this Xiao understands. Xiao Hua nodded and asked, Like you who ate rice, are there other cultivators? This? Zhong Haoren looked at the 4 people and shook his head. This little one doesn't know. This little one has been fasting for a long time. If the 4 of them didn't mention it, this little one wouldn't have thought that they still ate rice. When this little one and the others ate rice, we did it behind their backs. We only ate it after worshipping spiritual master, Fei Yinshu said in a low voice. Us too, Zhong Zhan and the others replied in the same way. Although Xiaohua was a bit curious about the relationship between worshipping him and eating rice, when he thought about how the people of the secular world did it, he was afraid that they would also do the same. As for why qi refining cultivators were so devout, Xiaohua could only attribute it to miraculous. Forget it. Xiaohua waved his hand. In the future, when you return to Zhongling Mountain Village, you can carefully investigate it. There are many immortal seeds there. In this Xiao's opinion, I'm afraid that all the rice has been replaced by immortal seeds. When Zhonghaoren heard this, a hint of embarrassment appeared on his face. He lowered his head and said, You're right, spiritual master. With spiritual master's support and the Zhongling Villa's arrangement, the rice in Mongolia is being replaced by good seeds in Yinqing, Jiqing, and Fancheng. Moreover, in the secular world, these immortal seeds have been called immortal seeds. Many influential people in the secular world have gathered in Yun City in order to obtain immortal seeds from the Zhong family. Because of this, the Zhong family has benefited greatly. Zhongling Mountain Village? Zhong family? When Xiaohua heard Zhonghaoren's words, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. It didn't seem to be the Zhongling Mountain Village, or Zhong family, that he often heard. Xiaohua couldn't help but notice the embarrassment on Zhonghaoren's face. Sure enough, Zhonghaoren said in a low voice, Spiritual master, if you insist on investigating around Zhongling Mountain Village, I'm afraid that this little one won't be able to complete it. However, the immortal seeds around Yun City have already been popularized. Even if this little one isn't in Zhongling Mountain Village, I can still complete it. Eh? Haoren, what's going on? Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and looked at the four people beside him. The four people's excited eyes revealed a trace of unwillingness, and he couldn't help but ask. Just now, this Xiao saw the five of you alone in the vicinity of this sword tomb. It's currently a great battle between Dao cultivators. How did you all come to such a dangerous place? Zhong Zhan and the others are only at the 10th level of qi refinement. A sword cultivator can kill all of you with a single flying sword. Zhonghaoren gritted his teeth and said with extreme grievance, I'll let spiritual master know. Actually, this little one is no longer a disciple of Zhongling Mountain Village. Earlier, what I said to that female sword cultivator was only out of consideration for this little one's face. Eh? How is that possible? Xiaohua was even more astonished. You're already at the initial stage of foundation establishment. This is a pretty good realm in your Zhongling Mountain Village. Moreover, you and this Xiao can be considered to be fated. How could Zhong Tianyao possibly expel you from Zhongling Mountain Village? This has nothing to do with Patriarch. Zhonghaoren hesitated for a moment and explained the reason for the matter. It turned out that back then, Xiaohua killed Patriarch Fei Xiqing of Ji City's Fei family and also expelled Patriarch Qin Kai of Fan City's Qin family. Although Patriarch Zhong Tianyao of Yun City's Zhong family was poisoned, under Xiaohua's detoxification technique, he quickly recovered to his original state. When Xiaohua was comprehending the ancient refining technique, Zhong Tianyao, who was strategizing, sent troops to attack Fan City's Qin family. That's right, it was Fan City and not Ji City. Qin family's patriarch was scared to death by Qin Kai. When he saw that Zhong Tianyao didn't go to Ji City and instead attacked him first, he was even more frightened. He thought that it was Xiaohua's instructions. In the end, under Zhong Tianyao's bluff, he only resisted for a few days before hurriedly retreating. He gave half of his family's territory to Zhong Tianyao in exchange for Xiaohua's forgiveness. Zhong Tianyao naturally knew when to stop and immediately sent disciples to Ji City. A Ji City without a patriarch was practically an empty city without a city gate. The Zhong family's disciples weren't in a hurry to attack Red Crane Mountain. They only surrounded the mountain peak and sent people who were eloquent to persuade them to surrender. Long before the Zhong family came to Red Crane Mountain, the Qin family had already sent disciples over. Not only did they inform the Fei family of Fei Xiqing's death, They even revealed a ferocious face and wanted to take Red Crane Mountain into the Qin family's pocket. However, before the Qin family could succeed, they couldn't protect themselves. That was why they hurriedly retreated. Now, the Zhong family that defeated the Qin family came again. The Fei family's elders discussed slightly and reached an agreement with the Zhong family. The content of the agreement was naturally not something that Zhong Haoren could know. But since then, the Qin family had submitted to the Zhong family. This was something that all the disciples of Yun City and Ji City knew. -9. Chapter 2561. Of course, Xiaohua had already left Zhongling Villa, so he didn't know about Zhong Tianyao actions. Xiaohua still thought that it was good enough that the Zhong and Qin families could divide the Fei family equally. But how could he know that Zhong Tianyao's strategy was far beyond his imagination, and far beyond his estimation? Since the Zhong family's strength had greatly increased, the Zhong family naturally had to strengthen their control over the Fei family and half of the Qin family. Therefore, many disciples of the Zhong family were sent out. Zhong Haoren couldn't speak, so he was treated as a mute. But after all, he was a 12th level Qi refining disciple, and was also sent to guard a place in the Qin family. Zhong Zhan, Zhong Pei, and Qin Ji were his subordinates. Although Zhong Haoren was disheartened emotionally, and was ridiculed by many of his fellow disciples, and even after he was sent to guard the Qin family, there were still some disciples who occasionally used his feelings for Zhong Xiuhan to mock him. But Zhong Haoren didn't care, and instead, his heart of cultivation became more and more firm. His mind also became clearer and clearer. The Qin family was the same as the Fei family, both of them were weapon refiners, and they also had some cultivation methods. After being annexed by the Zhong family, these cultivation methods naturally flowed into the Zhong family. However, the Zhong family's direct descendants and accomplished disciples didn't care about these foreign cultivation methods, so Zhong Tianyao ordered the disciples guarding the Qin and Fei family to choose the cultivation methods they liked to practice. And the place Zhong Haoren was guarding just happened to have a cultivation method for practicing flying swords, and he even found a good quality flying sword in the Qin family. The moment Zhong Haoren saw the flying sword and studied the sword art, he was immediately attracted by the piercingly cold sword qi of the flying sword. In addition, his cultivation had been stagnant for a long time, so he tried to practice the flying sword art. Who would have thought that Zhong Haoren's character was exactly suitable for flying swords? That sharp true qi carrying sword qi, under the impact of day and night, Xiaohua's seal on Zhong Haoren's acupoints was actually loosened. The moment the earth crystal Yao milk merged with his true qi was also the moment he built his foundation. Not only did Zhong Haoren easily build his foundation, he was even able to open his mouth and speak. At that time, how could Zhong Haoren not know that this was Xiaohua's painstaking effort? Previously, he hadn't complained at all, but now, he revered Xiaohua even more. Although he hadn't reached the level where he worshipped Xiaohua daily like Fei Yunshu did, every time he thought about it, his heart filled with gratitude. Zhong Zhan and Zhong Pei were also disciples of the Zhong family who started to rise after the Qin family. Because they weren't valued in the Zhongling villa in the beginning, they were very close to Zhong Haoren. After Zhong Haoren built his foundation, they paid more attention to him and gave him pointers. Although he couldn't be considered a master, he was better than a master. As for Qin Ji, because he originally practiced flying sword, although his cultivation was not satisfactory, he had been practicing since he was a child. Sometimes, Zhong Haoren would even ask him. When the Great War of Dao cultivators began, the Zhong clan of Yun City was not considered a big aristocratic family. Although Zhong Tianyao was a golden core cultivator, he was not worthy of the attention of those cultivation sections. Hence, they did not transfer disciples from their clan. However, Zhong Tianyao saw the opportunity of the Great War. He knew that training disciples in the Great War could not only improve their cultivation, but also discover disciples with strategic talents. In his opinion, disciples with strategic foresight were more useful than disciples with high cultivation. After all, he took down the Qin family, and the Fei family mostly by relying on his strategy, not by force. Of course, Zhong Tianyao still had the same thoughts as the other disciples who didn't participate in the Great War of Tao cultivators. Not only would there be spirit stones and sword arts, but there would also be flying swords, magic tools, and so on. It was really killing two birds with one stone. In this regard, Zhong Tianyao was even more eager than the disciples of the cultivation sects who didn't participate in the Great War. What supported a family or a sect was not only disciples, but also cultivation techniques. If the Zhong clan obtained more systematic cultivation techniques in the Great War of Sword cultivators, the Zhong clan might be able to leave the ranks of aristocratic families and become a cultivation sect. And wasn't his annexation of the Fei family and the Qin family the most crucial half-step? Therefore, Zhong Tianyao selected disciples to go to the Huan country to participate in the Great War of Sword cultivators. In order to control the Fei family and the Qin family, while the Zhong clan dispatched their own disciples, they also dispatched the disciples of the two families to the Huan country. Fei Yunshu was also among them. There were also thousands of disciples in the Zhongling Mountain Villa. The structure was similar to that of a cultivation sect. A dozen people formed a small team, and each team was led by a foundation establishment disciple. In addition, there was another disciple with a slightly lower cultivation to assist. Zhong Haoren, Zhong Zhan, Zhong Pei, and Qin Ji were in a small team. The leader of this team was a middle-stage foundation establishment disciple named Zhong Jinka. Logically speaking, Zhong Haoren was in the early stage of foundation establishment. It was precisely because he complimented Zhong Jinka that they had a good rapport. However, when Zhong Haoren saw Zhong Jinka, he was extremely embarrassed. Why? It was very simple. Zhong Jinka was Zhong Xiuhan's dual cultivation partner. Ever since Zhong Xiuhan set foot in the foundation establishment realm, her cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds with the support of the mending heavenly pill that repaired her meridians. She had long become a fairy in the eyes of the Zhong clan's male foundation establishment cultivators. Zhong Jinka had also used countless methods to pursue Zhong Xiuhan. This was also normal. However, Zhong Xiuhan inadvertently revealed some of Zhong Haoren's matters. Although she didn't mention Xiaohua, her apology and gratitude towards Zhong Haoren couldn't be concealed. If Zhong Jinka was a magnanimous person, then it would be fine. However, Zhong Jinka was quite scheming and narrow-minded. When he saw his former lover's follower whose cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds, he had long been displeased with him. As a result, the ugliness in human nature was revealed. First, he wanted to isolate Zhong Haoren. In the case of Zhong Zhan, Zhong Pei, Qin Ji, and Fei Yunshu, the four Qi refining disciples who used flying swords, following Zhong Haoren, he also isolated these 5 people, dividing a team of more than 10 people into 2. This wasn't all. Over the past 2 years since they arrived at the battlefield of the cultivation war, Zhong Jinka had constantly placed Zhong Haoren and the others in danger, making them complete nearly impossible tasks. And every time they completed a task, he would take all the credit for himself. Every 6 months, the Zhongling Mountain Villa would send disciples to exchange information and reward and punish everyone. However, Zhong Jinka got all the credit for the team, and Zhong Haoren got none. How could Zhong Haoren stand such a cowardly act? Although he was an upright person with a neutral character, after practicing the flying sword, he was also influenced by the flying sword cultivation method's unbending principle. He had long been cold to Zhong Jinka. If it were not for the strict rules of the Zhongling Mountain Villa, where everything on the battlefield was decided by the captain, he would have returned to the Zhongling Mountain Villa long ago. Zhong Jinka naturally saw Zhong Haoren's reaction and secretly rejoiced. 2 months ago, when Zhong Jinka sent Zhong Haoren to intercept and kill more than 10 sword gestation swordsmen, Zhong Haoren completely turned hostile. Those are 13 swordsmen at the 6th level of the sword gestation realm. Zhong Haoren gritted his teeth and said, "Although I'm at the early stage of the foundation establishment realm, I can handle 5 swordsmen at the 6th level of the sword gestation realm. But what about the 8 swordsmen at the sword gestation realm? How can Zhong Zhan and the other 3 deal with them?" This is a sure-death situation. Therefore, I immediately objected and proposed that the whole team of 23 disciples of the Zhong family should attack together. However, Zhong Jinka actually said that he had other arrangements for the other disciples, and that he had a more important task. If I don't intercept and kill them, I won't listen to the captain's orders. If I delay this matter, I'll bear the consequences. It's not right for you to go, but it's also not right for you not to go. Of course, you definitely can't go, Xiaohua said with a smile. If you go, you'll definitely die. Secondly, if you come back alive, he'll ask all kinds of questions and say that it's strange that you escaped from the hands of 13 swordsmen at the 6th level of the sword gestation realm. He'll even say that you were captured by the swordsmen and became their spy. At that time, I didn't think so much. I only knew that I couldn't possibly be a match for those swordsmen. If I went, I would only be throwing away my life. Zhong Haoran honestly replied. So I turned hostile. I resolutely refused to go. Well, in fact, you might as well go, Xiaohua said again. After you went, you could have avoided the battle and let them make a fuss about you. It's better than falling into their trap. This Zhong Jinka is just a scheming person. He's a careful person. He just wants to expel you from the Zhong family so that Zhong Yuehan's heart won't be obstructed. Unfortunately, I didn't see it clearly at that time. It wasn't until half a month later that the senior brothers of Zhongling village came to inspect. This guy took the opportunity to report this matter to the senior brothers of law enforcement. At once, he listed several crimes of this little one, such as not listening to orders, delaying the battle, affecting the morale, and so on. He asked the senior brothers of law enforcement to expel this little one from the Zhong family. Zhong Haoran angrily said, "It wasn't until that moment that this little one understood that the human heart is sinister." Ha ha ha, of course. Xiaohua pointed his finger and said, "The most sinister thing in this world is the human heart. The most fickle thing is also the human heart. The most unpredictable thing is still the human heart. You've gone through so many things, and you finally understand. Yes, this disciple has thought it through these days." Zhong Haoran said with relief. It's not that Zhong Jinka didn't have the means to kill this little one, and it's not that he didn't have the opportunity to kill this little one, but he was extremely cautious and didn't act rashly. He has been provoking this little one for the past few years, and I'm afraid that he wanted this little one to make the first move so that he could take advantage of the situation. When this little one didn't do as he wished, he took a step back and wanted to expel this little one from the Zhong family. Yes, or perhaps his original goal was to expel you, so that his wife can cultivate with ease. Xiaohua nodded. After all, it's more risky for him to kill you, and it will also damage his Dao heart, so it's not worth it. The human heart. Zhong Haoran sighed. If it was a little purer, how good would that be? Ha ha ha, then it wouldn't be the human heart, Xiaohua said. Moreover, without this fickle and sinister human heart, where would there be the current Zhong Haoran? Zhong Haoran shook his head sadly. This little one was expelled from the Zhong family, but Zhong Zhan and the others were also implicated. This little one feels very guilty in his heart. Martial Uncle Zhong, Fei Yunshu and the others said respectfully. Martial Uncle's character is noble and pure, and we all admire you. Following Martial Uncle is also our choice. What Spiritual Master said just now was extremely true. If we didn't follow Martial Uncle, I'm afraid our lives would be in danger in the war. -9. Chapter 2562. Zhong Haoran came to his senses and took a deep breath. How did you all get here? What are your plans for the future? Xiaohua asked with a smile. We left the Zhong family's disciples and had to act alone. We wanted to return to Yin City, but it's too far away. We didn't have any spirit stones with us, so we couldn't use the teleportation formation in Sky Patrol City. If we flew back directly, I'm afraid we would die, so we were at a loss. Zhong Haoran did not hide and said, But there are many sword cultivators here, so we couldn't stay for long. We decided to go to Sky Patrol City first and see if there was anyone we knew, then find a chance to return to Yin City. At the very least, we had to stay in Sky Patrol City to save our lives. However, I don't know what happened, but in this month, the number of swordsmen here suddenly increased. Our cultivation was shallow, so we had to hide and hope that the swordsmen didn't notice us. Zhong Haoren smiled bitterly. In fact, we were discovered by the illusory swordsmen several times, but they were extremely disdainful and let us go like flies. 4 hours ago, I had just escaped from an illusory swordsman. When I was fleeing in panic, I found the Ganoderma horse. The Ganoderma horse flew in front of me, so how could I not be happy? However, the Ganoderma horse was too cunning. I chased it for a long time before I could catch up with it, and put the confinement talisman on it. When I was about to pick up the Ganoderma horse, the Huanhua sect disciple appeared and took out her magic weapon. If it weren't for the female swordsman, I wouldn't have been able to see her. Zhong Haoren's mouth was dry after talking for a long time. Xiaohua smiled and clapped his hands. He took out a lot of spirit fruits and gave them to the 5 people. Seeing the 5 people eating happily, Xiaohua was also very happy. Then he asked, "You said that the number of swordsmen in the vicinity suddenly increased? Many of them are illusory swordsmen? Can you tell? I'll let you know." Zhong Haoren ate a spiritual fruit and smiled apologetically. "My cultivation is only at the foundation establishment stage, but I've killed a few embryonic swordsmen. Naturally, I have some understanding of the swordsman's cultivation. The illusory swordsman's sword light is reserved, and their divine thoughts cut people like a blade. Of course, I can tell." "That's strange." Xiaohua scratched his head. "The Dao sect's cultivators wanted to fight to the death with the Huan Kingdom's swordsmen near the Spirit Stone Mine. Why would so many illusory swords appear near the Sword Tomb? The vicinity of the Sword Catacomb has always been patrolled by the sword cultivators' bright sword and nurturing swordsmen. Even the city guards of the Sky Patrol City would occasionally come over." Zhong Haoren was also puzzled. But recently, the city guards of Sky Patrol City have almost disappeared. Instead, there are more swordsmen like Yujian. Otherwise, why would the disciples of the Zhongling Mountain Villa wander around the Sword Tomb? Are the other cultivation families the same as the Zhong family? Xiaohua was used to seeing cultivators from the Dao sect, so he couldn't help but ask. "Yes, all the big cultivation families will come." Zhong Haoren nodded. "I've also encountered quite a few. After all, we can obtain benefits from sword cultivators or fallen cultivators. It's extremely useful for the development of aristocratic families. However, even if we meet, we will carefully avoid each other. There won't be any great conflict." "So that's how it is." Xiaohua nods. "I thought only the cultivation sects were interested in war. These cultivation families also come to participate. Although there won't be any conflict, there should be a lot of small conflicts, right?" "That's right." Zhong Haoren smiles apologetically. "The Zhongling Mountain Villa has had many conflicts with some aristocratic families. The one that left the deepest impression on me is the Yu family from the fallen Gold Mountain in the country of Xi. They are extremely overbearing. When they see other aristocratic families, they will provoke them. In the past 2 years, the Zhongling Mountain Villa has had 6 conflicts with them. Every time, they suffered a great loss. Some of my crimes are that I didn't put an effort when fighting with them. If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext." Xiaohua snorts, but he doesn't ask why the Yu family is so overbearing. Then, Xiaohua looks to the north where the Sword Tomb is located. He ponders and says, "Could it be that the sword cultivators have some hidden cards here? However, that's not right. If Zhong Haoren and the others encountered it, how can the disciples of the other cultivation sects not encounter it? If I can think of it, how can others not think of it?" Although the group of gold core cultivators in the discussion hall are proficient in internal strife, they should be clear about this simple logic, right? Looking at Xiaohua's thoughtful expression, Zhong Haoren turns to look at the 4 disciples. The 4 disciples seemed to understand Zhong Haoren's meaning and nodded slightly. Then, the 5 of them throw themselves on the ground again without hesitation. "Io, what are you waiting for?" Xiaohua hears the noise and immediately turns his head. He asks curiously, "If there's a problem, we can talk it out. Why make such a big fuss over nothing?" "Taoist!" Zhong Haoren kneels on the ground and says with a bitter smile, "We have been expelled from the Zhong family and are already rogue cultivators. Moreover, if we are not wrong, when the Zhong family receives Zhong Jinka's message, they will definitely send disciples to find us. There is an 80 to 90% chance that they will cripple the cultivation of us 5. Even if Zhong Tianyao shows mercy for Taoist and doesn't cripple our cultivation, we will have nowhere to cultivate. We regard Taoist as a god or an immortal and are willing to serve Taoist for life. We ask Taoist to take us in. We hope Taoist can be merciful and take us in. Fei Yunshu is the most pious and has already kowtowed on the ground." "Oh, wait a moment." Xiaohua slowly nods and flicks his sleeves. "The 5 of them can only stand up. Zhong Haoren, since he wants to cripple your cultivation, why didn't he do it when he expelled you? Why wait until later? Isn't it the same if he imprisons you first?" Xiaohua asks. Seeing Xiaohua ask such a trivial question, Zhong Haoren is overjoyed. He knows that Xiaohua has tacitly agreed to take them in. He answers with a smile. Not all the disciples who were expelled by the Zhong family had their cultivation crippled. Moreover, don't we have some fate with Taoist? Zhong Jinka doesn't know, but that patrolling senior brother knows. Therefore, he doesn't dare to judge whether we have our cultivation crippled or not. What's more, the Zhong family still has to send people to keep an eye on us while we're imprisoned. If they don't, what if we lose our lives and Zhong Tianyao disagrees with Zhong Jinka's decision? Wouldn't they have to bear the responsibility? Actually, at that time, I wanted to return to Zhongling Villa with that patrolling senior brother to argue with Zhong Tianyao. However, the patrolling senior brother has to go somewhere else, and it's not convenient for him to bring us along. I'm afraid you only thought of relying on me when you saw me just now," Xiaohua said with a smile. Zhong Haoren nodded slightly and said without hiding anything, "You're right, Taoist. We didn't hear any news of Taoist here. We only thought that Taoist is still an Imperial Thunder sect. How would we think of relying on Taoist? Even if we wanted to, we had to go to Sky Patrol City first. It was only when Taoist revealed his face just now that we suddenly realized. We stayed here to wait for Taoist." "Ha! Well said, well said. This is fortune, this is karma. If all of you leave, then you won't have this fortune." Xiaohua roared with laughter. "Thank you, Taoist." Zhong Haoren thanked him again, but then he said with some worry, "However, Taoist is now only in the late stage of foundation establishment. I'm afraid that in Imperial Thunder Sect, it's still, if it's inconvenient for Taoist." Zhong Haoren naturally knew that the threshold for cultivation sects to recruit disciples was very high. The 5 of them might not be selected. Although he said that he was serving Xiaohua, he still had some thoughts about this in his heart. "Ha ha ha, who told you that I'm only in the late stage of foundation establishment?" Xiaohua laughed and patted his forehead. The pressure on his body was released, like bamboo shoots after a rain, rising steadily. Taoist. Seeing Xiaohua's pressure rise straight to the late stage of golden core and firmly suppressing the 5 of them, an indescribable fear came from their hearts. It seemed that the space around 100 feet around them was frozen. Zhong Haoren and the others cried out in surprise. "So Taoist cultivation is already so high." "Hee hee." Xiaohua smiled and slowly retracted his pressure. His realm also slowly fell until it returned to the middle stage of foundation establishment. Since Taoist already has the cultivation of golden core, then we have some connections to join Imperial Thunder Sect. Zhong Haoren was overjoyed. "When did this Xiao say that he would let you enter the Imperial Thunder Sect?" Xiaohua was still all smiles as he spoke. "Yes." When Zhong Haoren heard this, the corners of his mouth twitched. He was extremely embarrassed and said, "This little one is thinking too much. This little one is already satisfied to be able to serve Taoist." "Haoren." Xiaohua pointed. Do you think I'm playing with you? Then, Taoist's meaning is? Zhong Haoren didn't understand and looked at Xiao Hua strangely. As for Fei Yunshu and the others, they didn't have the right to speak and could only listen quietly. You wait and see. Xiao Hua smiled and took out many sword slips, jade slips, and some of Li Xiaobai's and Taoist's bright sword arts. This is... Zhong Haoren saw so many things and was immediately stunned. When he used his divine sense to look at some of the things inside, he was wild with joy. This is the sword arts for sword cultivators, from the gestation sword to the drawing sword and the illusory sword. There's also my Dao Sect's flying sword cultivation method? Zhong Haoren stammered. There's also these. Xiao Hua clapped his hands and dozens of flying swords fell into the air. Ah? So many! Zhong Haoren and the others were dumbfounded. It seemed that the 1,000 of them didn't obtain many flying swords in these 2 years, right? With these, do you still need to join Imperial Thunder Sect? Xiao Hua asked with a smile. Of course there's no need. The 5 people looked at the flying swords and their eyes widened. They had been training in the war for 2 years and their horizons had long been broadened. They knew that these flying swords were used by 6th-stage swordsmen, and their quality was extraordinary. Moreover, when they heard Zhong Haoren say that there were many sword arts, they were overjoyed and even somewhat in disbelief. Although this kind of resources couldn't be compared to Imperial Thunder Sect, it was still much less compared to Zhongling Villa. However, if the 5 of them were to use it, it would be more than enough. -9. Chapter 2563. Unknowingly, the 5 people's eyes lit up at the same time. They looked at each other and bowed. We pay respect to Sect Master. Sect Master? Xiao Hua was stunned. His surprise was not inferior to the 5 people's. He hurriedly helped them up. When did I say that I want to establish a sect? This Xiao means. Speaking up to here, Xiao Hua also stopped. Yes, his original intention was to find an inheritance for Master Bright Sword and Li Xiaobai's flying sword technique. Zhong Haoren's character was upright, and he had experienced the world's tempering. Xiao Hua's test was also easily passed. He was the best candidate to accept this inheritance. When Xiao Hua saw Zhong Haoren at Zhongling Villa that day, he already had this little plan in his heart. Now that Zhong Haoren was expelled from Zhongling Villa, it was also helping Zhong Haoren. He just happened to push the boat with the current and settle his own karma. However, after listening to Zhong Haoren and the others' reminder, Xiao Hua had another thought. That's right. Since the 5 of them have sword arts and flying swords, and Zhong Haoren's cultivation is at the early stage of the foundation establishment realm, and I, on the other hand, am comparable to the late stage of the Jinden realm. This kind of strength is more than enough to establish a small sect. Not to mention that there were so many spiritual herbs, pill recipes, and other things in his space. It was more than enough to support a medium-sized sect. Zhang Qishao, that guy, could become the sect master of Heavenly Demon Sect. Why couldn't Xiao Hua become the sect master? Back then, Shang Huaming's sect master was only a foundation establishment cultivator. Although 100 Grass Sect had many disciples, the sect master was also at the middle stage of foundation establishment. Thinking about the convenience of Zhang Qishao having Heavenly Demon Sect, Xiao Hua was somewhat coveting. Not to mention other things, just those dry distance pills and high thunder pills, relying on Xiao Hua alone, it would take a long time to gather them. And the other side only needed a sect master's command and someone would obediently deliver it to his hands. It was really more efficient than anything else. Grandma, make a sect to play with? Xiao Hua was somewhat moved. But immediately, Xiao Hua shook his head again. Forget it. Not to mention this young master's enemies, making a sect would increase the number of targets. Adding a few more dead people would be irresponsible to the sect's disciples. Besides, this young master's cultivation is good, making a sect. There are many matters in the sect, annoying to death. Just look at the group of old gold core cultivators in the assembly hall. Scheming against each other is really boring. The more people there are in the sect, the more it will be the same. Seeing Xiaohua deep in thought, Zhongharen and the others were delighted, but their hearts were also nervous. When Xiaohua frowned, Zhongharen and the others' hearts sank. Sure enough, Xiaohua opened his mouth. Let's not talk about this matter. These cultivation techniques and flying swords. I'll give them to you. Just focus on your own cultivation. Thank you for your reward, spiritual master. Zhongharen put away the cultivation technique and flying sword. He looked very happy, but he was also a little disappointed. Zhongharen probed. Perfected one, my cultivation is shallow. If these things are left with me, if they are snatched away, it's fine. Xiaohua said with a smile. This Xiao has already kept a copy of the cultivation technique and sword art. As for those flying swords, they are all mere worldly possessions. If you want to snatch them, then so be it. Actually, if we have more people, we don't have to be afraid of others. Zhongharen took the opportunity to say. Haha, that's up to you. Xiaohua said with a smile. Feel free to accept disciples, this Xiao won't stop you. Actually, didn't this Xiao say it just now? You can look for babies who can eat good seeds and carefully select them. Their aptitude may not be worse than the direct disciples of the cultivation sects. Perfected one, Zhongharen said with a bitter smile. What you said, isn't it just to establish a sect? How about we first establish a cultivation family? Why must we establish a family or sect? Xiaohua looked at Zhongharen and asked. I won't hide it from Perfected One. We are now rogue cultivators. We don't have anyone to rely on in the Xiaoyu continent. We don't have any confidence in our hearts. Although we consider Perfected One as our thoughts, you aren't by our side. If there is a family or sect, after all, there are many people. We can also protect ourselves. Zhongharen didn't dare to conceal anything and said in a low voice. Moreover, Perfected One Zhao's prestige among the common people of Meng country is very high. You are a Perfected One who is worshipped. If it is like what Perfected One Xiao said just now, the heaven and earth spiritual qi will change greatly. If the descendants of these common people can adapt to the heaven and earth spiritual qi, they will become the mainstay of the Xiaoyu continent in the future. If Perfected One doesn't take advantage of this opportunity to rise and use Perfected One's prestige in their hearts, wouldn't it be a pity? This is an opportunity that is hard to come by. Could it be that Perfected One wants to be used by others? Oh? Xiaohua's heart shook. That's right. Xiaohua was born in a peasant family. Now that he had lost all his memories, he still didn't have any great ambitions. When mentioning cultivation sects, his first impression was that they were troublesome. He was too lazy to get involved. When he heard Zhongharen's words, it was as if he was suddenly enlightened. The heaven and earth spiritual qi changed greatly. Every sect was adapting to it in order to protect themselves and strengthen themselves. It wasn't just the dispute between the three countries. For example, the country of Xishanghua sect and other sects began to snatch the spirit stone veins. Even this great war between Dao cultivators seemed to be because sword cultivators wanted to break into the Dao sect's territory to snatch the spirit stones. Weren't they all trying to take advantage of the heaven and earth spiritual qi? It wasn't just the spirit stones. In other aspects, cultivation sects were also changing. For example, the cultivation techniques of each sect and the method of selecting disciples had changed. They were exploring and finding a feasible way to adapt to the heaven and earth spiritual qi. And Xiaohua himself. He really was the key to changing the Dawn Rain continent. Not to mention how mystical Xiaohua's space was, not to mention the spirit herbs in his space, just the improved seeds from his space were the most important changes that Xiaohua had inadvertently made for the Dawn Rain continent. Cultivators were also humans. They were also people from the secular world at the very beginning. It was only because of their outstanding aptitude that they had the possibility to cultivate. Those disciples of cultivation sects and cultivation aristocratic families had more opportunities to cultivate, and enter the ranks of cultivators only because of their bloodline. Therefore, the foundation of the Dawn Rain continent's cultivation world was still the people of the secular world. those billions, tens of billions of people of the secular world were the foundation that supported this world. And what Xiaohua did was precisely to change this foundation. Although it was just the beginning and the number of people involved was still very small, didn't Zhong Haoren already say it? There were already many merchants who started to come to Yun City to ask for spirit seeds. In time, this improved seed would certainly cover the entire Dawn Rain continent. All the people of the secular world would have to change to eating Xiaohua's immortal seeds. This was such a great merit. This kind of merit, not to mention the gold core cultivators in the Sky Patrol City's conference hall, even the nascent soul sect masters of the 3 cultivation countries couldn't imagine it. Of course, when the cultivators who ate the immortal seeds grew up, the change in heaven and earth spirit chi would have already become the mainstream of the Dawn Rain continent. Those cultivators would naturally turn into countless streams and fall into different sects. Since that was the case, why couldn't Xiaohua at the beginning of all changes, at the beginning of all the cultivation sects' attention, at the beginning of the flow of spirit chi, establish a sect? If he established a sect here at this time, it would certainly be like the great river of flowing ice valley. From small to large, it would be magnificent, and even boundless in the end. In short, it could be said that this was an era where ambitious and ruthless people rose one after another, where heroes vied for supremacy, and where the winds and clouds met. Who knew how many famous people would fall here, and who knew how many nameless people would shake the world? And for Xiaohua, he saw this opportunity and seized it. It's a success. But isn't it too troublesome? After all, Xiaohua was a cultivator who comprehended the hand of karma. Once he thought about it, he immediately understood 1,000 miles and saw a lot of the future. But then, he muttered again. If Zhang Qishao was here and understood so much, she would have already taken the bright scenic bell and knocked his head, right? Troublesome? Xiaohua's whisper fell into Zhong Haoren's ears, and Zhong Haoren was immediately enlightened. His enlightenment came a little late. He, a disciple from an aristocratic family, never thought that there would be a god in the eyes of the secular world who was too lazy to establish a sect because he was afraid of trouble. That's right, Taoist master only concentrates on cultivation. Why would he care about the trivial matters of the secular world? Zhong Haoren thought again. Then, Zhong Haoren waved his hand, and the 5 people bowed again. Damn it, what are you doing? Quickly get up, Xiaohua said anxiously. We asked Taoist Master Xiao to establish a sect. If Taoist Master doesn't allow it, we won't get up again, Zhong Haoren said loudly. Good. Get up and talk. Although Xiaohua was forced by the 5 people, he wasn't angry. He waved his hand and said, Establishing a sect isn't a small matter. I admit that I don't have the ability. We will discuss it in detail. Yes, Taoist Master. Zhong Haoren was overjoyed. He looked at Zhong Zhan and the others and said, If you have anything to say, you can say it to Taoist Master. Do you see, if we force others, they will definitely be angry. Taoist Master is different from us. He definitely won't blame us. Yes. Zhong Zhan and the others were different from Zhong Haoren. They didn't dare to say much to Xiaohua and could only smile apologetically. It's not convenient here. Let's find a safe place. Xiaohua looked around and brought the 5 people to a low place. After the 5 people respectfully asked Xiaohua to sit, they sat in front of Xiaohua very respectfully. Haoren, I am now a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. You also know this. I don't know whether I can establish a sect or not. However, I'm afraid it won't be possible. Once the news of this sect is known by the Imperial Thunder sect, they will definitely send experts to exterminate it. And I can't even protect myself. Moreover, I have many enemies. These enemies are even more powerful than the Imperial Thunder sect. If I establish a sect, wouldn't I be pulling all of you into the same boat? Also, establishing a sect is not a joke. It requires a lot of manpower, especially manpower who can deal with the sect's affairs. I know what kind of person I am. This sect master. I really don't want to be. -9. Chapter 2564. Seeing that Xiao Hua still wanted to continue, Zhong Haoren hurriedly smiled obsequiously and said, "Establishing a sect is naturally a major event. It wasn't just what the Taoist master had said. Even the cultivation of spirit herbs, the refinement of medicinal pills, the daily lives of the disciples, and so on. All the details had to be taken into consideration. To be honest, I don't even know where to start. This humble one only came up with this idea on the spur of the moment, when I saw the real person. Furthermore, I feel that this path is absolutely feasible." And continue speaking. Xiao Hua knew that Zhong Haoren came from an aristocratic family and was very knowledgeable about these matters, so he nodded. "Right now, there are only 5 of us. Including you, there are only 6 of us. It's laughable to talk about establishing a sect. However, don't forget that you're not alone. Behind you are all the people in Yun City, Ji City, and Fan City who have received your kindness. The descendants of these people were also the people of the sage. They are our greatest support. Good boy. This guy is really amazing." Xiao Hua didn't expect Zhong Haoren to have such foresight and unconsciously nodded his head in praise. Seeing Xiao Hua nod, Zhong Haoren is also happy. He bows and says, "Actually, from what I see, Taoist doesn't need to show up at all. Taoist only needs to make a call, and I don't know how many capable people will join our sect. These disciples will all work for Taoist. There's no need for Taoist to go through any trouble. Even in the early days of establishing a sect, there was no need for a Taoist master to do anything. This lowly one knows that Reverend is now a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect, and will be fighting in this place. This lowly one only needs Reverend's permission, and this lowly one, and Zhong Zhan and the others will return to Meng country, find a place with spiritual mountains and clear waters, and prepare everything. Reverend need not worry about anything. I feel that as long as we use the name of spiritual master, everything won't be too complicated." "Really? Is that true?" When Xiao Hua heard this, he was overjoyed. "Of course." Zhong Haoren smiled and said, "In Zhongling Villa, Zhong Tianyao is the patriarch. Other than some important decisions, Zhong Tianyao doesn't need to do anything else. Zhong Peiyuan, Zhong Peifu, and the others were in charge of everything. Spiritual master's reputation is so great. It's really not a big deal to find some capable people and disciples with outstanding aptitude. And, when we encounter danger, Zhong Tianyao also has to step forward, right?" "That's true. If Reverend is in charge of a sect, and others want to attack, Reverend will naturally lead his disciples to defend against the enemy." Zhong Haoren nodded. "Haha, I understand. This Xiao likes to beat people up the most." Xiao Hua replied with a grin. "That's right." Zhong Haoren nodded. "Moreover, in this lowly one's opinion, our sect simply doesn't need to be like this. Spiritual Master's name is not prominent now, but it will definitely shake the world in the future. He will be the god worshipped by all the secular people of the Dawn Rain continent. Who would dare to touch our sect?" "Hee, you're too naive," Xiao Hua sneered. "If we establish our own sect, without strong support, it will only be a piece of fat meat. As for the rest of the world, it's a fat piece of meat that any cultivator would drool over." "That's right. Therefore, I hope that you can be merciful and make plans to establish a sect as soon as possible to protect all the common people in the world." Zhong Haoren went along with the flow and said, Let this Xiao think about it." After Xiao Hua finished speaking, he closed his eyes and pondered. Zhong Haoren and the others didn't dare to say anything and sat quietly at the side. Xiao Hua pondered for more than half a day. After thinking about it, he didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. It seemed that establishing a sect and leaving Li Xiubai and spiritual master Bright Sword's orthodoxy to Zhong Haoren were essentially no different. It's just that the number of people involved would be greater, and he would bear the title of sect master. "If this Xiao doesn't take the position of sect master, Haoren, what will you do?" Xiao Hua suddenly opened his eyes and asked. Zhong Haoren waited for half a day and unexpectedly heard Xiao Hua ask this question. he almost cried and said with a smile. Spiritual master, the core of our sect is spiritual master. Without spiritual master, how can there be a sect? But this Zhao's enemy is really powerful. Xiaohua hesitated. Actually, Fei Yunshu said timidly, spiritual master doesn't need to show up. Martial Uncle Zhong is the sect master and spiritual master is the sect master. It's also very good. As long as spiritual master knows that this sect belongs to spiritual master can support this sect at a critical time. This little one doesn't dare to be the sect master. Zhong Haoren turned pale with fright and hurriedly waved his hand. If that's the case, we can give it a try. Xiaohua nodded. Moreover, what's sect master, it's all up to us. Haoren, for your future, and also for this Zhao's escape route, this matter of establishing a sect will be handed over to you. Zhong Zhan, Qin Ji, Zhong Pei, and Fei Yunshu, you are now the disciples of my sect. In the future, when the sect develops, you will also be meritorious subjects. Thank you, spiritual master, thank you. Zhong Zhan and the others originally wanted to call him sect master, but thinking of what Xiaohua said just now, they didn't know how to address him. Xiaohua didn't explain. He scratched his chin, as if thinking about something. Spiritual master, Qinji asked carefully. What is the name of our sect? Oh? What do you think? Xiaohua asked with interest. At this time, he didn't have any burden. He couldn't do anything about it. He was only the sect master in name. It was like a child playing a game. Heaven and Earth Unified Sect? Flying Sword Sect? Bronze Tomb Sect? Spiritual Master Sect? Zhong Haoren and the others were full of interest. One name after another, they really racked their brains, making Xiaohua feel warm in his heart. This seemed to be another Shang Huaming. Seeing that Xiaohua didn't nod his head, everyone was a little nervous. Fei Yunshu stole a glance at them and said softly, this little one's grandmother was old and weak, but after eating the spiritual master's immortal seed, she lived for several more years. When she was on the verge of death, she seemed to have regained her youth. Before grandmother passed away, she said that meeting the spiritual master was her good fortune, and it was also the good fortune of millions of disaster victims. The spiritual master was also a fortune saint. This little one thinks that this sect's name shouldn't be called Fortune Gate. Great! Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. When he heard the names mentioned by Zhong Haoren and the others, he felt that he should have a more suitable name, or perhaps he knew of a sect's name, but he couldn't think of a name for it. When Xiaohua heard the name, Fortune Gate, he became vigilant. Perhaps he had a sect's name, but that was already in the past. Fei Yunshu's Fortune Gate hit the nail on the head and pointed out the good fortune of cultivation methods. Many thanks, spiritual master. When Fei Yunshu heard that his name was chosen by Xiaohua, his face flushed red. It was really glowing, more energetic than if he had eaten a heaven-mending pill. That's right, Fortune Gate, this is the name. Zhong Haoren's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he shouted happily. The world's fortune is in our sect. Those who enter our sect will obtain the fortune of heaven and earth. This is in line with the spiritual master's principles. When the Fortune Gate's name was decided, Zhong Haoren rubbed his hands excitedly. Fei Yunshu and the others were also happy, but then Zhong Haoren frowned and looked at Xiaohua with difficulty. Spiritual master, although you don't want to be the sect master, this little one's talent is limited, and I may not be able to be the sect master. Most importantly, Zhong Zhan, Fei Yunshu, and the others' status is not easy to decide. Wouldn't it be fine if you were the master of the four of them? Xiaohua replied with a smile. Zhong Haoren smiled wryly. Spiritual master can give us pointers in cultivation, but you want this little one to give them pointers? I'm afraid I don't have the ability. When Fei Yunshu and the others heard this, their hearts beat violently, and they looked at Xiaohua anxiously. Obviously, Zhong Haoren wanted them to be apprenticed to him. Haoren, you will temporarily take the position of sect master, and all the sex affairs will be handed over to you. Xiaohua said without hesitation. Other than that, your cultivation. This Xiao has the obligation to give pointers, but now is not the right time. These cultivation techniques will have to be comprehended by yourselves. If Howren is unwilling to be your master, then all of you can be considered to have entered my fortune gate on the same day, and become senior and junior brothers. Yes, this disciple understands. Fei Yunshu and the others hesitated, but Zhong Howren agreed with a smile. Zhong Zhan and the others stood up and saluted Zhong Howren, greeting the fortune gate's eldest senior brother, officially establishing their seniority. Also, this Xiao has something to discuss with everyone. Xiaohua was happy to see them following the rules, but he suddenly thought of something and asked with a smile. Spiritual Master, please speak. Zhong Howren said curiously. On the Dawn Rain mainland, one's cultivation realm is the basis of seniority. As long as one's cultivation is one realm higher, they have to address you as senior. This is even more obvious in some cultivation sections. Regardless of your seniority, as long as your cultivation is fast, other disciples will have to call you martial uncle when they see you. There is no difference in seniority. This Xiao feels a little inappropriate. Xiaohua explained carefully. This Xiao feels that in my fortune gate, regardless of cultivation realm, everyone should be addressed according to seniority. What do you all think? This? Zhong Howren was slightly dazed. This seemed to be the cultivation world's rule, and it had always been like this. He had never thought much about it. It's like this, spiritual master. Zhong Howren pondered for a moment, then said, There are only a few of us now, so it's easy to talk about seniority, but what if it's thousands of years later? There are tens of thousands of disciples in the sect, hundreds of thousands, or even millions. If two disciples don't know each other when they meet, how do they address each other? It should be the most convenient to talk about cultivation realm, right? Moreover, the lifespan of cultivators like us is gradually increasing, and as the number of disciples increases, it's inevitable that there will be some differences in age and seniority. How can a young chi refining disciple be a foundation establishment old man's martial uncle? Moreover, even if there is a clear seniority in my fortune gate, there are so many cultivation sects on the Dawn Rain mainland. The seniority is very complicated. How can it be clearly distinguished? Xiaohua was a little flabbergasted. He had just casually mentioned it, and had some thoughts of his own, but he didn't expect it to be so troublesome. AI, it's reasonable to exist. Perhaps, this Zhao's thinking is too simple. -9. Chapter 2565. Taoist Master's thoughts are reasonable. Zhong Howren smiled. If Taoist Master has such thoughts, why don't we wait until our fortune gate has someone capable in this field and let them consider it carefully? Yes, that's right. Xiaohua smiled. This Xiao will still give you some pointers in your cultivation. Xiaohua and the others stayed for several days. Not only did Xiaohua check their cultivation, he also made them consume the heavenly mending pills and gave them some pointers on flying swords cultivation. Only then did he send them to the Sky Patrol City from the Sword Tomb. When they saw Xiaohua take out the 7 possibility sex-flowing cloud-flying ship, Zhong Howren prostrated himself in admiration, while Fei Yunshu and the others felt that it was only natural. The journey to the Sky Patrol City was naturally not peaceful. They encountered several groups of sword cultivators, most of whom were around grade 6, and there were even 2 groups of illusory swordsmen. However, what made Zhong Howren and the others flabbergasted was that all the swordsmen, without exception, were envious when they saw the flowing cloud-flying ship. No matter how many people there were, they all surrounded the flowing cloud-flying ship. But all the swordsmen, without exception, fled like rats. The reason they fled was because of a single sentence from Xiaohua, and a single magic art. This magic art was naturally Xiaohua's lightning-attracting technique. Xiaohua waved his hand, and dark clouds appeared in the sky. Crackling lightning flashed in the air. All the swordsmen fell into deep thought when they saw the lightning, and that sentence was, "A terrifying phoenix is here. If you don't want to die, quickly get out of the way." Hearing this, and thinking of Qin Jian's fate, even if Xiao Hua had a huge bounty on his head, these swordsmen were enlightened. None of them dared to stay on the spot. Taoist master! You! Zhong Haoren saw this several times, and he and his companions were simply stunned. This was really inconceivable. Those swordsmen were comparable to mid-golden core swordsmen and they were scared away by Xiao Hua's words. This Xiao convinces people with virtue. Xiao Hua was immensely proud. With this unforgettable scene, Zhong Haoren and the others were even more confident about their future, and the Fortune Gate's future. More than 10 days later, Xiao Hua arrived at the outskirts of Sky Patrol City. He did not go within 100 miles of the city. Instead, he stopped the flowing cloud-flying ship in midair and said with a smile, "Haoren, I will send you here. There will definitely be guards from Sky Patrol City within 100 miles. You will not be harassed by sword cultivators. Nothing will happen. Many thanks, Taoist." Zhong Haoren didn't want to part with Xiao Hua and was reluctant to part with him. When will Taoist Master come to Main Kingdom? How do we inform Taoist Master that we have chosen the spiritual mountains and rivers? Fei Yunshu and the others had seen Taoist Master Xiao in the past few days. So, they had become a little bolder. They asked in a low voice, "Go ahead and do what you need to do. There's no need to inform this Xiao of anything." Xiao Hua smiled. "Once the battle is over, this Xiao will go to Passage City to take a look. With this Xiao's ability, do you think I won't be able to find you?" "Yes, disciple and the others understand," Fei Yunshu said respectfully. "We will worship Taoist every day. Taoist will naturally know." Xiao Hua chuckled, then took out 5 storage pouches and handed them to Zhong Haoren and the others. "These are used by my Fortune Gate. Take one each and give it to Haoren after you get to Ming Empire. Oh right, if others try to snatch it, let them take it. You don't need to pester them. Remember, this is an external object, and you are the cornerstone of my Fortune Gate." "Yes, disciple understands." Zhong Haoren nodded. However, when they received the storage pouches and looked at the things inside, they couldn't help but feel stupefied. Following Taoist Master Xiao, Zhong Haoren and his companions couldn't help but feel shocked. Their faces were probably stiff from shock, right? These are all my Fortune Gates." Zhong Haoren bit his lips. The sharp pain on his lips proved that he wasn't dreaming. There was no need to talk about the good seeds inside the storage pouches, the medicinal pills, and the spiritual herbs. Zhong Haoren didn't want to talk about them. That mountain of spirit stones, how could he not be shocked? Moreover, Xiao Hua had clearly said that the 5 people's storage pouches were ordinary. What he saw was only 20%. Only 20%. This Xiao is far away in Huan country, so I can't help. You all have to work the hardest. Xiao Hua nodded and said, "Moreover, my Fortune Gate has just been established, so these things are indispensable. Don't look at the many things inside the storage pouches. If the Fortune Gate is really in its embryonic form, these things may not be enough." Yes, disciple understands." Zhong Haoren and the others' hands were trembling as they carefully put away the storage pouches. "Of course, these things belong to my Fortune Gate. This Xiao does not wish for the disciples I value to have other selfish motives. Otherwise, this Xiao's terrifying phoenix name is not in vain." Xiao Hua's tone changed as he said coldly, "Disciple does not dare." Zhong Haoren and the others hurriedly knelt on the ground. "We swear a blood oath in the name of Tao Master Xiao that if we covet the things inside the storage pouches, our souls will be devoured by the spiritual fire, living a life worse than death." As soon as these words came out, Xiao Hua felt a strange feeling coming from his Buddha fire. Several drops of indistinct purplish-red beads appeared on the edge of the golden thread. "Oh!" Xiao Hua could only sense it, but not feel it. Knowing that the oath was made, he smiled and helped the 5 people up. "As long as everyone does their best, when the Fortune Gate prospers, it will also be the time when your name shakes the world. To be honest, the things inside the storage pouches, how can they compare to your glory in the future? We still need Dao Master Zhao's guidance. Fei Yunshu and the others shed tears of gratitude. There's also this. Xiaohua comforted everyone, then took out a jade pendant and handed it to Zhong Haoren, saying, If Zhong Tianao comes looking for trouble, just show this to him. Also, if ordinary gold core cultivators come to stir up trouble, take this out as well. After this battle, this Xiao should have some fame, so this item should be of some use. Yes, Zhong Haoren received the jade pendant and looked at Xiaohua. Seeing Xiaohua nod slightly, Zhong Haoren immersed his divine sense into the jade pendant, and saw a faint image of Xiaohua standing with his hands clasped behind his back. Zhong Haoren could vaguely see Xiaohua's face clearly, and then Xiaohua's unhurried voice sounded. I am Xiaohua, and this is this Xiao's token. Seeing this token is like seeing this Xiao in person. If any fellow Taoist doesn't give this Xiao face and exterminates this Xiao's descendants, this Xiao will definitely kill his way to your door and exterminate your entire family. Although Xiaohua's voice was very faint, there seemed to be some kind of magic in his voice. Zhong Haoren trembled in fear and almost threw the jade pendant away. Fortunately, Xiaohua's hand landed on Zhong Haoren's shoulder, and Zhong Haoren's divine sense immediately came out from the jade pendant. Many thanks for Dao Master Zhao's generous gift. Zhong Haoren was overjoyed. With this item, he felt more confident. There are also these. Xiaohua touched his storage pouch again and took out a large pile of fire talismans. He said, This is what I got from a sword cultivator. It's extremely precious. Take it to protect yourself. If there's no other choice, don't take it out. Jade talismans? Zhong Haoren's mouth almost fell open. It's good that you know. Xiaohua nodded. If this item were to leak out, my fortune gate would never have a day of peace. That's why I'm only using it as a last resort for self-defense. Yes, this disciple understands. How could Zhong Haoren not know the severity of the matter? He hurriedly put away the fire talismans. All right, this Xiao has nothing else on him. Everything is in your hands. Xiaohua clapped his hands with a relaxed expression. This disciple once again thanks Dao Master Xiao for his great kindness. Zhong Haoren couldn't help but kneel again. Fei Yunshu and the others also followed suit. Good! Xiaohua did not stop them this time. After they finished kneeling, he helped them up and said, This Xiao has done what he should do. The rest is up to you. This Xiao remembers that there was a rogue cultivator organization called Heaven Forsaken. It was formed by rogue cultivators at the early Foundation establishment and Qi refining stage. This Xiao wants to see if you can build my fortune gate into a bigger sect than Heaven Forsaken. Dao Master Xiao, rest assured. Zhong Haoren and the others were full of confidence. How can Heaven Forsaken compare to my fortune gate? My fortune gate will definitely become the #1 sect on the Dawn Rain mainland. Ha ha ha, this Xiao can rest assured with these words. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, This Xiao looks forward to it. Yes, this disciple and the others will definitely do our best to strengthen our fortune gate. We will definitely not disappoint Dao Master Xiao. Zhong Haoren and the others loudly agreed and flew out of the flowing cloud flying ship. When Zhong Haoren and the others slowly flew away, the corners of Xiaohua's mouth curved into a faint smile. How could it be so easy to establish a sect? Especially with Zhong Haoren, who was only at the early Foundation establishment stage, and Zhong Zhan, Zhong Pei, Qin Ji, and Fei Yunshu who were only in the 10th layer of the Qi refining stage. To them, it was not a problem to establish a small-scale sect. It was not realistic to develop it further. Rather than saying that Xiaohua was willing to take out something to establish the fortune gate, it was better to say that Xiaohua gave them a spiritual promise, giving them a goal to strive for. Even if they fail, what can they do? Xiaohua put away the flowing cloud-flying ship and turned around with a smile. At least they worked hard, at least they have the opportunity to cultivate. It's better than this young master's pitiful self in the past, right? Of course, who knew what would happen in the future? Even Xiaohua, who had comprehended the hand of karma, couldn't see through it. Perhaps this fortune gate would be similar to the 100 Talismans sect, claiming to be big behind closed doors. Perhaps it would be like what Zhong Haoren had said, becoming the #1 sect on the Dawn Rain continent. Or perhaps it could just barely develop into a cultivation sect similar to the 100 Herbs sect. In short, everything was possible under the heavenly Tao. Which sect's disciple are you, and why are you loitering here? While Xiaohua was contemplating, a voice sounded in front of him. When Xiaohua raised his head, he saw a group of Sky Patrol City's city guards flying over. Seeing that the city guards had discovered him, Xiaohua simply stopped in midair. He waited for a mid-Foundation Establishment city guard to lead a group of early Foundation Establishment disciples to stop about 10 zhang away from him, then cupped his fists and said, "This one is lightning controlling Sex Xiaohua. I have received a special order from the main hall to deal with an important matter." -9. Chapter 2566. The Conference Hall's Special Permit? The tall city guard did not let down his guard because of Xiaohua's words. Instead, he frowned and said, "Please take out the special permit, fellow cultivator Xiao." "Captain?" While the captain was talking to Xiaohua, 2 or 3 city guards beside him were shocked. The city guard closest to the captain hurriedly whispered to him through telepathy. When Xiaohua took out his token, the city guard had also finished his telepathy. The captain, who was in the intermediate Foundation Establishment stage, was surprised. He even looked at Xiaohua a few times before he cupped his hands and said, "So it's Xiaohua from the Imperial Thunder sect who killed Qin Jian. Chu, sorry for the disrespect. However, fellow cultivator Xiao, please take out your token for me to check and let Chu confirm your identity. It's my duty, please forgive me." "Oh? They issued the reward so quickly?" Xiaohua was surprised when he heard that. In his mind, he had made great contributions in the past, and was repeatedly questioned by the conference hall. They even sent people to check. Killing Qin Jian was such a great contribution. Wouldn't the conference hall take a long time to verify it? How could they issue the reward so quickly? "Fellow cultivator Chu, please check it." Xiaohua took out his token and handed it to the city guard. Xiaohua's command medallion was naturally normal. The seal of the Assembly Hall's special permission medallion was also inside. The city guard surnamed Chu looked at it, and very respectfully returned it to Xiaohua. His previous stern expression changed. However, within this respect, there seemed to be a hint of pretense. Immediately, City Guard Chu smiled and said, "Fellow cultivator Xiao, are you going back to Sky Patrol City? Or did you just come out of Sky Patrol City?" Xiaohua's eyes swiveled, and he replied, "Neither. I was ordered by Senior Brother Li Zongbao to deliver the news. I was just passing by Sky Patrol City and was thinking about whether to return to Sky Patrol City to meet Senior Brotherly. Fellow cultivator Chu is here. Fellow cultivator Li Zongbao from the Utopia faction." City Guard Chu's eyes lit up and he said with joy, "Chu was on duty in the south of Sky Patrol City some time ago and did not return to Sky Patrol City. I just heard from my disciple that the notorious sword cultivator Qin Jian was killed by fellow cultivator Xiao and fellow cultivator Li. This was truly satisfying. In particular, Qin Jian sneaked into my Sky Patrol City and assassinated Senior Tuesday. You have avenged my Sky Patrol City. Fellow Taoist Xiao, can you tell me what happened that day?" You flatter me, you flatter me. It's all thanks to fellow Taoist Li Zongbao's profound magic power. Fellow Taoist Xiao Mao Xiao of Xiunyuan School is also formidable. This humble one only played a supporting role from the side. I really don't dare to claim credit for myself. Xiaohua hastily and humbly declined. Nonsense, even if Xiaohua's little tail was raised high, he still didn't dare to casually say it out loud. Who knew how Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao reported it in the conference hall? Fellow cultivator Xiao is too humble. We really want to know how that evil Qin Jian was killed. The city guard surnamed Chu and the other city guards were envious. Evidently, they truly believed that Xiaohua, a cultivator whose cultivation was similar to theirs, was able to obtain such a great military achievement because of luck. I really don't dare to claim credit for myself. Xiaohua's face was slightly red, as if he was really ashamed. The more Xiaohua acted like this, the more the city guard surnamed Chu pestered him. It was as if they really saw that if they had followed Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao to Flowing Ice Valley, Qin Jian would have been killed by them. Xiaohua sneered in his heart, but his face was really red. This guy's blushing technique was absolutely perfect, even more skillful than the heaven and earth and the sleeve technique. Fellow Taoist crooked soul, farewell. Xiaohua flew up and activated the command medallion with a flip of his hand. He said, I'll call Senior Marshal Brother Li Zongbao over and let him tell you about it. I still have a mission to complete. Haha, all right. The city guard surnamed Chu was also proud of himself. He was happier than killing Qin Jian, as if he had caught Xiaohua's hypocrisy behind the military achievement. Unfortunately, Xiaohua's token didn't shine at all. Obviously, either the Sky Patrol City had blocked the transmission of the token, or Li Zongbao wasn't in the Sky Patrol City. Fellow Taoist Xiao! A city guard next to him smiled and said, As early as a few days ago, the Golden Core stage masters in the meeting hall had led the disciples of various sects to the battlefield. I'm afraid fellow Taoist Li Zongbao has also left the Sky Patrol City with the disciples of the Utopia faction. Oh? Xiaohua's face was slightly shocked. They've gone, why didn't they inform me? I'm afraid fellow Taoist Li has other plans, the city guard surnamed Chu said with a smile. Humph! Xiaohua sneered and thought to himself. Knowing that the disciples of various sects have already left the Sky Patrol City, they're still here making a fuss and not telling me the news. They're obviously making fun of me. Damn it, it seems that the Sky Patrol City doesn't care about the reward in the meeting hall. Of course, I'm not even at the middle stage of the Foundation establishment stage, so it's inevitable that they'll look down on me. Fellow Taoists, please enlighten me. Xiaohua hurriedly asked. I wonder where Senior Brother Li or the Imperial Thunder Sect are going to fight. This is a secret order from the meeting hall, we don't know about it, the city guard surnamed Chu said with a smile. At this time in the Sky Patrol City, there are disciples from various sects guarding the city. If fellow Taoist Xiao is in a hurry, you can go to the Sky Patrol City to ask first. No need. Xiaohua hurriedly flew up and cupped his hands. I still have a mission to complete, I'll look for them after I've completed it. With that, Xiaohua's figure headed towards the northwest, looking a little flustered. Ha! After Xiaohua's figure disappeared, the city guard surnamed Chu burst out laughing. Even the other city guards were swaying back and forth. Damn it, this Xiaohua is really lucky. With such a cultivation level? And he could even kill Qin Jian? If it weren't for the support of Li Zongbao from the Utopia faction and Xiao Mao from the Xuingyan school, he would have been killed by Qin Jian? Haha, you're right. Another city guard laughed until he was out of breath and said, Look at his blushing face. He also knows how to feel ashamed. Also, when he heard about joining the battle, he immediately flew away, as if he was afraid of knowing where the battle line was. Such a cultivator. How could he make any contributions? He's just lucky, it's not that his cultivation level is high. A city guard said sarcastically. At this moment, a red message talisman flew over from the direction of the Sky Patrol City and stopped in front of the city guard surnamed Chu. The city guard managed to stop laughing and caught the message talisman. After he immersed his divine thought into it, his expression suddenly changed to one of extreme awkwardness and embarrassment. What's wrong, Captain Chu? A few city guards hurriedly asked. The city master's secret order. Send it to all the teams on duty in the Sky Patrol City. The city guard surnamed Chu said word by word. If you find traces of Xiaohua from the Imperial Thunder Sect, do not disturb him. Immediately, directly report to the city master's mansion. Ah! All the city guards were shocked, and the sarcastic disciple almost screamed. What? What's going on? As the city guards of the Sky Patrol City, they knew better than anyone else the meaning of the sentence. If you find traces of Xiao Hua from the Imperial Thunder Sect, do not disturb him. Immediately report to the City Master's mansion. Quickly send the message talisman to the City Master. Captain Chu ordered a city guard beside him, then he turned and flew into the air. But after flying for less than 30 meters, he stopped again. His eyes gazed in the direction Xiao Hua had disappeared, and he forcefully extinguished the thought of pursuing him. He waved his hand and said, "You all continue to patrol. Chu will go and meet the City Master." "Yes, I understand." The city guards replied in unison, then flew up again and continued to patrol in the same direction as before. However, their eyes were still looking in the direction where Xiao Hua flew. They really did not know. How did this disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect, whose cultivation level was only in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment stage, offend the Snow Region Master? Of course, Xiao Hua did not know that when he sent Zhong Haoren and the others back to the Sky Patrol City, in the lofty City Master's mansion in the Sky Patrol City, the Snow Region Master, whom he was afraid of 2 hours ago, was sitting cross-legged on the cattail hassock. His eyes were slightly narrowed, and no one knew what he was thinking. However, his expression was not calm, which showed that he was not meditating. Strange. Why do I feel a little uneasy? The Snow Region Master opened his eyes slightly, and there was a trace of confusion under his eyelids. Could it be that there is a breakthrough in the Qianzhan mysterious technique? After the Snow Region Master circulated his technique, his snow-white eyebrows trembled slightly, and the confusion turned into a trace of ecstasy, but it disappeared in a flash. I really did not expect this. The Qianzhan mysterious technique, which I have not made any progress in all this time, is actually making progress here. This progress is not much, but no matter what, it is the biggest progress in the last 100 years. The Snow Region Master's expression returned to normal, and he thought to himself, "Before the Dao Cultivator War, I went into closed-door cultivation for more than 10 years and took countless pills, but I didn't see any progress. This Dao Cultivator War has only been going on for 10 years, and I have been so worried about the war that I didn't have time to cultivate. I didn't even do my homework, but my cultivation level has actually improved. It's really like when you plant flowers, the flowers don't bloom, but when you plant a willow, the willow grows." Thinking about this, the Snow Region Master raised his eyebrows and whispered, "Lengbai, you have been waiting outside for 2 days. What can you do for me?" Following the Snow Region Master's words, there was a flash of light and Fan Lengbai's figure appeared outside the door. When Fan Lengbai heard the Snow Region Master speak, he was very surprised. He quickly walked in and bowed. "Disciple has nothing special to do, but I heard that the City Master hasn't dealt with any city matters during this time, so Disciple came to tell the City Master about the war." "Humph, what is there to say?" the Snow Region Master sneered. "In this Dao Cultivator War, my Dao sect will suffer a great loss. There is no one among this group of Golden Core cultivators that knows how to strategize, so how could they gain an advantage? They can only wait for those old nascent soul cultivators to clean up their mess." -9. Chapter 2567. Fan Lengbai wanted to laugh but did not dare to laugh when he heard Sage Shuiyu say, "Wipe his ass." However, based on Sage Shuiyu's words, Fan Lengbai knew that Sage Shuiyu was in an extremely good mood. After a while, Fan Lengbai suppressed his laughter and reported, "In the past few days, the conference hall has sent out orders for disciples from all sects to go on expeditions. We've already found out the power distribution of the sword cultivators in the Huan Kingdom. Based on this information, the conference hall has sent out another order for the final battle. Now, the Golden Core cultivators in the conference hall have set out on a large scale, bringing all the cultivators to the Huan Kingdom. Our Sky Patrol City has also sent out more than 80,000 disciples." As he spoke, Fan Lengbai held up a jade pendant above his head. "I've asked the City Lord about this matter, but the City Lord ignored me, so I can only act on my own. It's fine." Master Shuiyu grabbed the jade pendant, and it flew into his hand. However, he didn't even look at it. He nodded and said, "Everything related to the war in the Sky Patrol City has been handed over to you and Jean King. Your decision is my decision. No matter how stupid you are, you don't need me to wipe your ass for you." Ha! Fan Lengbai couldn't help but laugh. He bowed respectfully and said, "Disciple congratulates the city lord on improving your cultivation again." Ha ha! Master Shuiyu laughed loudly. "My cultivation is still not enough. You still saw through it. Hee, Disciple has followed the city lord for over 100 years. The city lord treats Disciple like a nephew. Disciple knows that the city lord is focused on cultivation and doesn't pay much attention to the war. Previously, the city lord was in a bad mood and didn't even see Disciple. Now that the city lord is in a good mood, Disciple naturally knows. It has nothing to do with the city lord's state of mind," Fan Lengbai said honestly. That's right. Master Shuiyu wiped his eyebrows with his finger and said with a smile, "Although I don't pay much attention to the war, I still know the general trend. However, the conference hall sent out the order for the final battle so early, which is beyond my expectations." When Fan Ling heard this, he was just about to take out a jade slip from his sleeve. However, when he saw Shuiyu Jinren's rare interest, he stopped himself and smiled. "What does the city lord think?" According to this old man's original opinion, the conference hall would release some bait to lure out sword cultivators from the country of Shi and country of Lien. Then they would kill them one by one. This way, perhaps they could delay it for 3 to 5 years. But now, how did these core formation brats suddenly have the courage? A decisive battle? This is something this old man didn't expect. Perfected Shuiyu seemed to be deep in thought. If they had the guts to do so, coupled with Tu Hong's scheme, the battle between Dao cultivators would have been decided long ago instead of being pushed to the outskirts of Sky Patrol City by sword cultivators. Haha, Fan Lengbai smiled and wanted to put his hand into his sleeve, but Master Shui raised his voice again. "Lengbai, yes, Sir City Lord, what instructions do you have?" Fan Ling's hand stopped as he hurriedly asked. "Is there any movement near the sword mound?" "Sword mound?" Fan Lengbai was taken aback. After thinking for a moment, he smiled bitterly and said, "Well, Sir City Lord, this time, many sword cultivators have forced their way into the country of Shi and country of Lien. The sword mound is already behind the sword cultivators' defensive line and is very far away. The city guards of Sky Patrol City can't patrol the sword mound together with the disciples of the various sects during the battle between sword cultivators. Although I have already sent my disciples out, they can only patrol once every 10 days. This time, there is a high possibility that some disciples will die. Therefore, I don't have a detailed grasp of their movements. Of course, according to my recent news, as well as the information from the spies in the country of Huan, there are no strange movements in the sword mound. There are only some sword cultivators who are pregnant with swords, some small sects that didn't participate in the battle, and some cultivation families that are active there. Of course, our pawns in the country of Huan have low cultivation levels and are not valued by the sword cultivators. Their knowledge is also limited. Those cultivators must be crazy from poverty. The sword mound is already far away from our cultivators' defensive line and is behind the sword cultivators. They still dare to go there. Perfected Shuiyu sneered. It's precisely because it's behind the sword cultivators that the sword cultivators are less vigilant. Those low-level cultivators have a chance. Fan Lengbai smiled apologetically. Even if the sword cultivators are less vigilant, it's not something they can covet. Any illusory sword that appears will be enough to wipe out their sects, right? Yes. That's why birds die for food and men die for wealth. Fan Lengbai agreed. What about the conference hall? Perfected Shuiyu suddenly asked. The conference hall? Fan Lengbai was startled, but he immediately understood. A strange expression appeared on his face. Sir City Lord, are you talking about the conference hall's attention to the sword mound? What? Perfected Shuiyu was surprised, and his face was filled with disbelief. Could it be Could it be that the conference hall? That's right. Fan Lengbai smiled bitterly. The conference hall didn't send any disciples to patrol the sword mound. It seems, from their actions, I didn't see how important the sword mound was to them. They only told me when they were stationed in Sky Patrol City, to inform them if there was news about the sword mound in Sky Patrol City. Perfected Shui, you didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He slapped his forehead and said, "Oh my God! The sword mound is the last barrier for the sword cultivators to retreat. If they don't know about the situation in the sword mound, and the sword cultivators are forced to retreat, will they chase after them? Maybe they have been suppressed by the sword cultivators, and the battle line has long gone beyond the sword mound. They never thought that there would be a day where they would fight the sword cultivators to the sword mound, right?" Fan Lengbai replied with a smile. It was as if this war was a good show happening beside Sky Patrol City, and had nothing to do with them. How can such a kid defeat the sword cultivators? Perfected Shuiyu snorted. Looks like there won't be any Golden Core disciples who can stand out in this war. Of course. Which Golden Core cultivator can compare with Junior Brother 2? Fan Lengbai couldn't help but blurt it out. But when he said it, his heart trembled, and he stole a glance at Perfected Shuiyu. Perfected Shuiyu only snorted. I naturally think highly of Tu Hong's talent, but he's too bold. And he's unlucky. Yes, but... Fan Lengbai touched his sleeves again. Just as he was about to speak, Perfected Shuiyu asked again. Lengbai, you said that the meeting hall doesn't care about the sword mound. Although Sky Patrol City patrols the sword mound, the swordsmen in the sword mound aren't important. Could it be that the sword cultivators this time are all mediocre? They didn't make an issue out of the sword mound? I'm not sure. Fan Lengbai smiled apologetically. After all, the sword mound is behind the sword cultivators, and the sword mound is thousands of miles wide. We can't completely inspect it, so who knows what's inside? Of course, according to the records of the previous war, the sword cultivators have a 50% chance of resisting stubbornly in the sword mound, blocking our cultivators outside the sword mound. After all, once we break through the sword mound, we'll be in the Huan country's territory. TCH. So what about the Huan country's territory? That place is even colder than my snow region's highlands. Who would want to go there? Perfected Shuiyu was disdainful, then sighed. It's a pity that our Dao sex transportation array has been lost. If we had a formation master to refine it, this war wouldn't be so difficult. Haha, if there was a transportation array, I'm afraid this war would be even more difficult. Fan Lengbai smiled apologetically. Ha, that's right, those Golden Core brats in the meeting hall. I'm afraid they would have been beaten into cowards by the sword cultivators. Our Sky Patrol City's spirit stone veins wouldn't have fallen into their hands. Perfected Shuiyu laughed. Yes. Fan Lengbai nodded, then said, That's right, according to the latest war report, the spirit stone veins in the Seven Extremes Mountains have been seized by the Imperial Thunder Sect and the Huanhua Sect. Haha, the latest war report is in your sleeve, right? Perfected Shuiyu laughed. Yes. Fan Lengbai wiped the sweat from his forehead and smiled. I should have taken it out long ago, but seeing the city lord so happy, I didn't want to disturb you. Show it to me. Perfected Shuiyu stretched out his hand and said, See if there's any other good news? Yes, sir. Fan Lengbai raised the jade slip and said with a smile, Besides this, there's another piece of good news. Oh? What is it? Perfected Shuiyu took the jade slip and asked casually. Qin Jian, who tried to assassinate junior brother Tu Hong, was killed by 3 cultivators from the Dao sect. This can be considered as helping Sky Patrol City vent our anger. Fan Lengbai said with a smile, but then he thought of something and hurriedly said, Of course, even if the city lord's judgment is that Qin Jian might not be the one who tried to assassinate junior brother Tu, these 3 disciples from the Dao sect have helped us vent our anger. This Qin Jian was too arrogant, he even killed 3 Golden Core cultivators before he died. Oh, which 3 Golden Core cultivators? Perfected Shuiyu was surprised to hear that Qin Jian had been killed, so he probed the jade slip with his spiritual force and asked casually. Not golden core cultivators. 3 foundation establishment stage disciples. Fan Lengbai smiled apologetically. The report in the meeting hall was a little vague, but it should be that Qin Jian was severely injured by the 3 golden core cultivators, and the 3 foundation establishment stage disciples took the opportunity to kill him. How is that possible? Perfected Shuiyu said coldly. Qin Jian was a 3rd-grade illusory swordsman, and his cultivation level was comparable to an advanced golden core cultivator. How could 3 foundation establishment stage disciples kill him? This credit. I'm afraid it's fake, right? Fan Lengbai's back was drenched in cold sweat when he saw Perfected Shuiyu's gaze. He quickly smiled apologetically and said, The fake credit was done by the disciples of the various sects who participated in the battle. It has nothing to do with Sky Patrol City. Who would dare to fake the credit for something as important as killing Qin Jian? Li Zongbao from the Utopia faction even brought back Qin Jian's head and sword token, so it can't be fake. Oh? Li Zongbao from the Utopia faction, Xiao Mao from the Xiunyan school, Xiao Hua from the Imperial Thunder sect? Perfected Shuiyu frowned and said in confusion. One is in the Advanced Foundation Establishment stage, one is in the Middle Foundation Establishment stage, and one is at the peak of the initial Foundation Establishment stage. Isn't this a joke? Even if Qin Jian was lying there, his flying sword was not something that the 3 of them could block, right? -9. Chapter 2568. City Governor, do you believe me? The cultivators in the meeting hall believe me. I couldn't wait for the city governor's order, so I sent the promised reward to the meeting hall without permission. Fan Lengbai said hesitantly. I didn't dare to delay this matter that involved junior brother Tu Hong. I didn't want to hurt the disciples of Sky Patrol City. Humph! There must be something fishy about this. Shuiyu Perfected Master said coldly. The swordsman who assassinated Tu Hong wasn't Qin Jian. I was lured by a sword that day, and I left Sky Patrol City on the day Tu Hong was assassinated. I saw Qin Jian hundreds of miles away from Sky Patrol City. If he could assassinate Tu Hong before me, he would be a divine sword cultivator. Ah? Fan Lengbai was shocked. So, the person who assassinated junior brother Tu in Sky Patrol City wasn't Qin Jian? Then, who is this fake Qin Jian? According to the cultivators at the scene, this fake Qin Jian was Qin Jian's face, and he was also using flying sword techniques. Especially, the sword formation. It's definitely not my Dao cultivator's flying sword. The flying sword and the sword formation are not surprising. Shuiyu Perfected Master's face darkened. There are 2 key points. First, how did the assassin escape from Sky Patrol City? Second, what's so special about the sword formation that it made Tu Hong, who was always calm, go crazy? Hiss! Fan Lengbai suddenly thought of a possibility. He gasped and said in shock, Could it be? City Governor, that's right! Shuiyu Perfected Master's tone was terrifying. I've been thinking about these days, and I think that the assassin might not have left Sky Patrol City at all, so my tricks at the city gate and teleportation formation were ineffective. Besides, if the assassin could impersonate Qin Jian, he could also impersonate someone else. That's how he escaped my detection. Also, in the sword formation. I'm afraid there's some soul cultivator's item that can disturb people's minds. Soul cultivator? Fan Lengbai bit his lips. Could it be that a soul cultivator is here too? That's possible. Shuiyu Perfected Master narrowed his eyes. Then, he raised his eyebrows and said loudly, Golden Pit? Why are you so flustered? When Fan Leng heard this, he smiled apologetically and said, Senior brother Jean is impatient and doesn't have the time to wait outside the hall. He has already been here a few times. Seeing the city lord open the hall today, I'm afraid there's something going on. Disciple Jean King greets the city lord. Jean King walked up to the main hall and bowed. All right, get up. Shui Yu waved his hand and said, You rushed into the main hall the moment you entered my residence. Is there something important? Yes. Jean King said as he took out a jade slip from his bosom, handed it forward and said, Yesterday, I cleaned up the jade slip and found that before Tu Hong Lin left, there was a period of time when the records of the meeting hall were not sent to the mansion, so I went to Tu Hong's mansion and found this jade slip in the closed study room. Oh? Is there anything special about it? Shui Yu Sage asked patiently. Jean King was also stunned. He raised his head and looked at Shui Yu. Just like Fan Lengbai, he immediately sensed that Shui Yu was in a good mood. He glanced at Fan Lengbai and bowed. Disciple congratulates City Lord for improving your cultivation. Ha ha ha! Shui Yu Sage laughed and said, Tell me, what did you find? This? Jean King bit his lips and said hesitantly, Disciple checked this jade slip and found something strange in it. Tu Hong recorded what happened in the meeting hall during those days, including Li Zongbao from the Utopia faction and Xiao Hua from the Thunder Control sect. Oh? Is there also Xiao Mao from the Xiunyan school? Fan Ling asked in surprise. Yes, it's the three people who killed Qin Jian. Jean King obviously knew about this and nodded. However, according to the records in the jade slip, Xiao Mao had just been rescued by Xiao Hua from the Yinyang Twin Springs Mountain. Oh, or rather, he was brought back. Taoist Master Shui's snow-white eyebrows twitched even though there was no wind. He suddenly had a bad feeling. In this jade slip, Li Zongbao and Xiao Hua's series of military exploits are recorded. This disciple found it inconceivable. These two Foundation establishment cultivators did many things that even Golden Core cultivators couldn't accomplish. This disciple won't speak of the specifics. This jade slip has all the records. Sir City Lord will know with a single glance, Jean King said concisely. What surprised me the most was that at the end of the jade slip, Junior Brother Tu Hong wrote this sentence. What sentence? Fan Ling interrupted curiously. According to Disciple's observation, Li Zongbao and Xiao Hua must have a secret skill that can greatly improve their cultivation in a short period of time. Moreover, this person is very intelligent and seems to be hiding something. If it's Li Zongbao, then he has a domineering aura behind his arrogance. If it's Xiao Hua, then he has a murderous aura behind his modesty. However, according to Disciple's observation of the Golden Core stage cultivators in the meeting hall, they seem to have noticed it too, but they didn't point it out. I think these Dao sect cultivators must be plotting something. Maybe they want to suppress our Sky Patrol City, or maybe they want to show off their power to us. Of course, Li Zongbao is the main reason, because Heng Lu always helps Li Zongbao cover up at the crucial moment. Moreover, Disciple feels that some of Xiao Hua's achievements were given to him by Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao. This is nothing? Fan Lingbi asked curiously. The three cultivators have a good relationship. Otherwise, they wouldn't have joined hands to kill Qin Jian. Junior Brother Fang, don't be anxious, Jean King said coldly. I haven't finished speaking. Junior Brother Tu Hong said, If this person is Xiao Hua, then it's too scary. City Lord, please be careful. Whine. The sound of wind and clouds surging immediately sounded from the main hall, and a hurricane instantly swept through the entire main hall. The hurricane made Fan Lingbi and Jean King's robes flutter, and they were so scared that their faces turned pale. The two of them hurriedly lowered their heads, not daring to say anything. Obviously they knew that. Shui Yu Master was angry. After a while, Shui Yu Master retracted his spiritual sense from the jade slip and said coldly, Tu Hong died a good death. What a good death. He actually died in the hands of a Dao sect cultivator. City Lord. Jean King's face showed a trace of confusion. Senior Brother Jean. Just now, City Lord said that the person who killed Junior Brother Tu was definitely not Qin Jian. He saw Qin Jian outside the city that day. Fan Lingbi said softly. See, could it be this Xiao Hua? Jean King naturally knew about the matter between Tu Hong and Diu Aiqiming. He immediately pointed out Xiao Hua. This is not possible, right? Do you still have the list of people who entered and left Sky Patrol City those few days? Shuiyu Master asked coldly. Yes. Fan Lingbi hurriedly took out a jade slip. This item was very important, so he carried it with him at all times. Shuiyu Master took a closer look and threw it to Fan Lingbi. Take a look yourself. On that day, Li Zongbao, Xiao Mao, and Xiao Hua returned to Sky Patrol City. Yes. Fan Lingbi's expression changed after looking at it. Xiao Hua, Cui Hongshan, and Dui Qiming were all from Imperial Thundersect's first team. When he returned to Sky Patrol City, he knew that Cui Hongshan and Dui Qiming were going to dual cultivate. When he returned to Imperial Thundersect's encampment, he saw that Cui Hongshan had been deceived or that Qianemo had put him under house arrest. Thus, he had evil intentions and sneaked into Junior Brother Tu's residence. It seems Dui Qiming and Xiao Hua didn't have much of a relationship. Could it be that Cui Hongshan and Xiao Hua had a life and death relationship? There was no need to kill Junior Brother Tu. Jean King was confused. Do you know why Tu Hong didn't dare to send this to you in time? Shuiyu Master snorted. He might not have time, but the biggest reason was that he didn't dare to believe it. Why did the last sentence of the jade slip say that Xiao Hua was scary? He felt that the survival of Imperial Thundersect's first team could be due to Xiao Hua's strength. How is that possible? Fan Lingbi and Jean King couldn't believe that the spirit howl array of Mount Quanjin that even nascent soul cultivators didn't dare to touch was broken by Xiao Hua, and he was still safe and sound inside. Of course, this was only his suspicion. Tu Hong was afraid that mentioning Mount Quanjin would provoke me, but he didn't dare to not take revenge, so he was hesitant. It was also because of this hesitation that Xiao Hua had time to take his life. Shuiyu Master said faintly. His anger had gradually subsided. Of course, if it was like what City Lord said that Xiao Hua's strength was close to the nascent soul stage, then his contributions, his return to Sky Patrol City to assassinate Tu Hong, and even killing Qin Jian would all be extremely easy. Fan Lingbi asked in confusion. But why didn't Qianemo know about Xiao Hua's cultivation? Then why didn't the Golden Core cultivators in the meeting hall know? Why didn't they say it out loud? Firstly, they didn't know that the person who assassinated Junior Tu was definitely not Qin Jian. Didn't the City Lord also suspect that it was a soul cultivator? Even he didn't suspect the Dao sect cultivators, how could they have thought of it? Jean King retorted. Furthermore, even if they saw something, that Xiao Hua is a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect, what does it have to do with them? Qianemo, that sanctimonious thing, is blind. I'm afraid he really couldn't see it. Why would those Golden Core cultivators remind him? I still don't agree. This is a 1 in a million situation. Of course, this is also the most ideal deduction. Fan Lingbi stubbornly disagreed. What if? If there wasn't this, how could I cultivate to the nascent soul stage? If there wasn't this, how could you all condense your core? Shuiyu Master laughed sinisterly. I have a feeling that this Xiao Hua is the main force that killed Qin Jian. Hearing Shuiyu Master's words, Fan Lingbi didn't dare to say anything else. Where is Xiao Hua now? Shuiyu Master asked. Reporting to the City Lord, Fan Lingbi hurriedly said. According to the meeting hall, he didn't even return to Sky Patrol City. He was sent somewhere else by Li Zongbao. What place? This, the meeting hall didn't say. This disciple doesn't know. -9. Chapter 2569. That's right. Xiao Hua must have a guilty conscience, Jean King said coldly. If he returns to Sky Patrol City and the City Lord finds out that he killed Qin Jian, he will definitely think of his cultivation. How can he escape from the City Lord's search in Sky Patrol City? Xiao Hua! Xiao Hua! Shuiyu Down Master gritted his teeth. Thinking of the place where Qin Jian disappeared, it was not far from Imperial Thunder Sect. How could he not know that he was tricked by Xiao Hua? Send out the City Lord's secret order. Shui Yudao Master ordered in a low voice. If any disciple on duty discovers Xiaohua's whereabouts, immediately inform the city lord's residence. Yes, disciple understands. Jean King hurriedly sent out the order. Fan Lingbi hurriedly said, Xiaohua is in Imperial Thunder Sect's army right now. City Lord might as well inform Qian Mo. Humph, idiot! Shui Yudao Master scolded. Xiaohua even killed Qin Jian and Tu Hong without any scruples. How would Qian Mo know his background? No wonder Qian Leizi did not come to Sky Patrol City to attend Tu Hong and Dui Qiming's dual cultivation ceremony. He has a guilty conscience. Even Dui Qiming's master and Dui Qiming's master took the opportunity to come to Sky Patrol City and did not disembark from the Thunder ship to greet me. It seems they have a guilty conscience. Yes, disciple is stupid. Fan Lingbi saw Shui Yudao Master scolding him, which was rare, and his body trembled, and he lowered his head. Yes, disciple understands. Imperial Thunder Sect must not know about this. Jean King sent out the city lord's order and added, Xiaohua should only be killed quietly. Otherwise, with his contributions, the city lord wouldn't be able to easily make a move. Furthermore, at this point, Jean King also shrunk his neck and did not dare to speak anymore. Yes, Shui Yudao Master killed Xiaohua as a nascent soul cultivator. Xiaohua's strength aside, Xiaohua was only a foundation establishment disciple. In front of Shui Yudao Master, he was just a child. If Shui Yudao Master directly faced Xiaohua, then wouldn't that be a joke? But Xiaohua could even kill Qin Jian and Tu Hong. He and Fan Lingbi might not be his opponent. Shui Yudao Master would not let others do it. However, if Master Shui Yu didn't make a move now, who knew where Xiaohua would run off to after the battle? Even if he returned to the Imperial Lightning Sect, Shui Yu would not be able to force the Imperial Lightning Sect. After all, everything was just speculation. Sky Patrol City did not have any evidence to prove that Xiaohua was the one who killed Tu Hong. Moreover, even if Xiaohua admitted to killing Tu Hong, why would he kill Tu Hong? Quan Jin Shan and Dui Qiming were both Xiaohua's reasons. If this layer of responsibility was revealed, how could sect leader Qian Leizi not protect his own Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples? Ling Biao go to the Imperial Thunder Sect again, and see what the relationship between Xiaohua and Shui Hongshan is. Shui Yu's spiritual master looked at the ashen-faced Fang Ling and said, The reason why he wanted to assassinate Tu Hong was because of Jin Quan Mountain, but I can't figure out why he would be so anxious. If he were to assassinate Tu Hong while he was out of the city, even with this information, I wouldn't suspect him. Yes, disciple will head over now. Fan Ling hurriedly left. In less than half a cup of tea's time, Fan Ling hurriedly returned with a strange expression on his face. Reporting to City Lord. Fan Ling took a deep breath and said, Disciple has asked clearly. Xiaohua and Shui Hongshan are, from the Lightning Palace's myriad Thunder Valley. They are true brothers. Humph, no wonder. Shui Yu's spiritual master and Jean King were enlightened. At this moment, a message talisman was sent from outside and landed in Jean King's hand. Jean King frowned and crushed the message talisman. A disciple's voice was heard. Reporting to City Lord Chu Hung, who was patrolling outside Sky Patrol City, saw Xiaohua from the Imperial Thunder Sect. Quick, Jean King hurriedly waved his hand and a message talisman shot out like lightning. However, Shui Yu's spiritual master was even faster than the message talisman, and rushed out of the main hall. Let's go! When Jean King and Fan Ling went out, Shui Yu's spiritual master was long gone. Only Chu Hung, who had just returned to Sky Patrol City, was left. When and where did you see Xiaohua? Fan Ling hurriedly asked. Just now, Chu Hung hurriedly said. Disciple had just finished interrogating Xiaohua when I received the City Lord's order. Disciple did not stop at all and used the teleportation talisman to return here. Go and receive your reward, Fan Ling ordered. After Chu Hung left, he turned to look at Jean King and said thoughtfully, Once the City Lord goes, the truth will definitely come to light. Yes, if the City Lord captures Xiaohua, there's no need to say. Jean King nodded. But if the city lord can't capture Xiaohua, there's still no need to say. But Fanlin was still hesitant and said in a low voice, there's still something I don't understand. Then, how did Xiaohua use a sword formation? How did he use a flying sword? Isn't he a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect? Is this important? Jean King did not answer directly. Instead, he looked at the distant sky and said coldly, Indeed. Fanling stopped talking and also looked into the distance. The two of them did not dare to leave and only waited at the entrance of the main hall. After several hours, they saw Shuiyu's spiritual master return. After crossing the entire country of Xi and heading to the west of Ming country, there was a huge mountain range. This mountain range was like a creeping dragon that stretched for thousands of miles. At the same time, this mountain range was also full of ups and downs. The mountains were completely different. Some places were swampy and muddy, some places were bright with the fragrance of plum blossoms, some places were shrouded in black fog, and some places were occupied by immortal clouds. In the middle of the mountain range, although the mountains were dangerous and rugged with strange rocks, the rocks were all sparkling and translucent, and the flowers were all shining. It was really a beautiful scene. This mountain range was the foundation of Ming country's famous Suyan sect, Zhongxiu Mountain Range. In the mountain range, there was a mountain peak that was not very tall but was rather quiet. White feathers spread out and spiritual apes cried. Hidden by green vines, there was an extraordinary immortal's cave. It was afternoon, and the round sun had already moved to the west. The orange red sunlight passed through the green wood and shone on the door of the immortal's cave. The colorful mottled light slowly slid on the door, and it was beautiful and really attracted people's attention. Unfortunately, although there were no noisy cicadas, the chirping of birds was also not surprising. There was no one who could easily come to this immortal's abode. Whoosh! A scarlet light streaked across the sky and suddenly disturbed this quiet mountain peak. It was a communication talisman that fell in front of the immortal's cave. When the communication talisman touched the door of the immortal's cave, the door raised a circle of light and then disappeared. The communication talisman also fell down and floated in the air. Not long after, the door of the immortal's cave was pushed open with a creak. A drooping boy poked his head out and blinked his sparkling eyes a few times. With a wave of his hand, the communication talisman fell into his hand. Then the door creaked again and slowly closed, and the boy disappeared. Martial ancestor! Martial ancestor! The boy entered the immortal's cave. It was a huge valley, and the spiritual energy in the valley had condensed into mist. It floated in the air and filled the entire valley. There were countless spirit grasses, spirit trees, and even many celestial birds in the mist, making it look even more like an immortal's cave. The boy shouted as he flew. Only occasionally did he have to land on the ground. Along the way, there were many cultivators of different ages that looked at the boy with smiles on their faces. There were even a few that stopped and made way for the boy. Thank you, senior martial brother, thank you, martial uncle. The boy's crisp voice echoed along the way. When he saw a stone wall floating in the air, the boy stopped. He bowed toward the stone wall and respectfully said, Martial ancestor, there is a communication talisman for you outside the immortal's cave. As the boy's voice fell, a layer of milky white mist flashed across the stone wall. When the mist dissipated, an irregular cave about 10 feet in size appeared on the stone wall. A voice came from the cave. Bring it up! Yes, the boy replied and flew to the top of the stone wall. He saw that this was a cave that was not very deep. There was a faint brilliance in the cave, which just happened to illuminate the entire cave. Inside the cave, there was an incomparable coolness that penetrated to the bones. The boy obediently walked inside and handed the communication talisman to a tall cultivator that was sitting cross-legged inside. This cultivator had an imposing appearance and looked amiable. It was Zhu Qinghe that Xiaohua met at the Burial Flower Manor. At this moment, Zhu Qinghe still had an amiable expression. He took the communication talisman and said with a smile, Zhu, your cultivation has improved again. Good, martial ancestor knows. Zhuer has been in seclusion for another 20 days. Now I have reached the peak of the 3rd level of the Qi refining realm. With a little more effort, I can enter the 4th level of the Qi refining realm. The boy heard the praise and replied with some exultation. Not bad. Zhu Qinghe nodded. You can endure hardships. I was right about you. However, the way of cultivation is to be steady. Don't be arrogant just because you have just reached the 3rd level of the Qi refining realm. The road ahead is long. Yes, Zhuer knows. The boy stuck out his tongue and hurriedly bowed. And go. Zhu Qinghe didn't say much. He waved his hand and let the boy leave. Then, he opened the communication talisman and immersed his divine thought into it. When he finished reading, his face unconsciously showed a strange expression. He whispered, Hee, it's actually the sect leader who summoned the troops. He wants me to go to the Sky Patrol City? Could it be that the first stage of the Dao cultivator battle is going to end so soon? Will the cultivators of my Dao sect win? Or will the swordsmen of Huan country win? Then Zhu Qinghe looked at the light outside the cave again and said self-deprecatingly, The sect leader's order of confinement is also removed from today. It seems that the suspicion on me is now gone. The crime of instigating a Dao cultivator battle will not fall on me. As Zhu Qinghe spoke, a strange smile appeared on his face. He clapped his hands and shouted, Come, take my order and go to the Jade Rain Palace. Bring me a copy of all the battle reports of the battle. Yes, I understand. A loud voice sounded from outside the cave. Then, a burly intermediate foundation establishment cultivator flew out of the cave and flew into the distance. In less than 2 hours, the disciple flew back and respectfully handed several jade slips to Zhu Qinghe. Zhu Qinghe narrowed his eyes and picked up a jade slip. He immersed his divine thought into it and seemed to be carefully reading it. However, after a while, Zhu Qinghe's face showed a trace of mockery. Humph, the golden core cultivators in this battle are all pigs. Ping Dai is even more useless. The entire battle dispatch is a mess. Then Zhu Qinghe threw the jade slip and sneered. There's no need to read it in the future. The Dao sect will lose this battle. The hundreds of thousands of cultivators will be forced to the outskirts of the Sky Patrol City by the sword cultivators. No wonder the sect leader ordered the troops. The Shuiyu spiritual master of the Sky Patrol City may not be able to hold on, right? Zhu Qinghe looked at the few jade slips scattered on the ground and closed his eyes to meditate. However, after a few minutes, Zhu Qinghe waved his hand and another jade slip appeared in his hand. He murmured, I wonder who the opponent of the sword cultivators is this time? However, before he could finish speaking, he exclaimed, Tu Hong? Quan Jin Shan killed nearly 30,000 swordsmen? And dozens of illusory sword cultivators? The Sky Patrol City has such a great talent, how can they lose? Xiao Hua. Then Zhu Qinghe looked as if he had seen a ghost. He was even more shocked than when he saw Tu Hong's battle achievements. He jumped up from the ground and shouted in disbelief. This guy. Didn't he die in the ink-black forest long ago? -9. Chapter 2570. That's right, it's Xiao Hua from the Imperial Thunder Sect. Zhu Qinghe checked again, and the shock on his face did not disappear. The first team of the Imperial Thunder Sect, the first meritorious member of the Imperial Thunder Sect, he was sent to the spiritual stone mine of Mount Quanjing. Killed by a swordsman. Seeing this, Zhu Qinghe did not know why, but he let out a long sigh. Phew! This guy. How did he escape? That year, I saw him being struck by the flying sword of Immortal Mingjian with my own eyes. Zhu Qinghe suddenly realized. But I only saw him being struck. Although he was definitely dead, but I didn't see him die. Could it be that he had another adventure? But fortunately he died in Mount Quanjing or else. Thinking of this, Zhu Qinghe suddenly looked at the other jade slips that were scattered around, but there was a flash of fear in his eyes. He could not wait any longer, and all the jade slips fell into his hands, and he immediately immersed his divine thought into them. Sure enough, in just a moment, Zhu Qinghe's face turned ashen, and he shouted in disbelief. Mount Qianjin's spirit Hao Array! He and the first team of the Imperial Thunder sect actually came back to life. How is this possible? Then, he immersed his divine thought into all the jade slips again, and looked through them carefully. He did not see any news about Xiaohua, then he carefully kept the jade slips. Zhu Qinghe stood there quietly, and for a good while, he suddenly moved, and his figure flew out of the cave. He did not have time to seal the cave, and his figure flew out of the Immortal cave like a meteor, and rushed into a place in the Zhongxiu mountain range, and disappeared. North of the Sky Patrol City, in the sky, dark clouds covered the sky tightly. Although the dark clouds were extremely heavy, there was no lightning, nor was there any snow. But faintly, there was a sound of thunder coming from afar. The sound of thunder was very ear-piercing, as if it was under the dark clouds. When the sound of thunder approached, another figure flashed across the sky. His speed was even faster than a shooting star as he dashed across the sky and scattered the dark clouds. What was left behind this figure were not only scattered clouds, but also the sound of thunder that reverberated between the clouds. This person was naturally Xiaohua. After Xiaohua left the Sky Patrol City, he immediately flew towards the northeast, and when he was out of the sight of the city guards, he immediately urged the thunder travel, and flew straight to the north. Although Shui Yu Down Master immediately flew out of Sky Patrol City when he received the report from the city guards, his initial direction was wrong. Moreover, his flying speed was not much faster than Xiaohua's. How could he catch up with Xiaohua? He was destined to return empty-handed. However, the pitiful Xiaohua still didn't know that he had been exposed by the Shuiyu sage of the Sky Patrol City. He was still flying around freely. Activating his magic power, Xiaohua pushed Imperial Lightning Travel to its limits. A feeling of freedom filled Xiaohua's body and mind. Every pore on his body was filled with joy. It was as if cruising between heaven and earth, breaking away from all the shackles, was the life he should have. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes, and the primordial spirit in the space was carefully comprehending the primordial spirit sword manipulation technique in Xinjian's memory. This secret technique was used by sword cultivators to transform into swords, so it was naturally difficult to understand, and there were many secrets that were passed down orally by sword cultivators. Although Xiaohua had obtained it for a long time, his progress was still very slow. However, Xiaohua did not panic at all. If he could comprehend it in a short period of time, he would doubt the authenticity of this secret technique. It was precisely because it was difficult to comprehend that he felt at ease. It was fine if he did not make a breakthrough in this secret technique, but once he did, it would definitely be of great benefit to his cultivation. After being free for more than 10 days, when dawn came, a ray of sunlight shot out from the ground, and in an instant the whole world was lit up. Xiaohua opened his mouth, and a mouthful of grand essence entered his mouth. But when he closed his mouth and swallowed, his gaze froze. In front of him, a purple color dyed the heaven and earth. That purple color was so pure and so alluring, like a kind of flashing glass, it instantly attracted Xiaohua's gaze, and directly penetrated into his eyes, and then into his mind. Purple jasmine flower! Xiaohua was practically moaning as he swallowed with difficulty. His throat felt like it was dry land. The purple color in front of him flowed like velvet, gorgeous like splashes of color, and also seemed to be purple flames dancing, emitting a flirtatious charm. Throwing away heaven and earth. Seeing the purple jasmine flower, Xiaohua naturally knew that it was the location of the sword tomb, and he did not lose his direction. When the sun that flashed across the dawn-rain continent fell to the left of Xiaohua, the purple jasmine flower blotted out the sky and covered the earth. He saw that this was a kind of spiritual grass that was about 3 feet tall, and on the purple background, there were traces of blood-red roots that stubbornly spat out from the dried-up layer of ice. From the root upwards, the dense blood-red threads gradually rubbed into the purple color, until it was purified into a purple branch. On this 2 feet long pure purple branch, there were purple flower petals that were only the size of a grain of rice. These flower petals were hollow, and there was no stamen. All the flower petals seemed to be wrapped together, as if they had never opened before. What was special was that this purple flower petal was unusually sharp at the top and oval at the bottom, like a purple teardrop falling down. If it was just a stalk of purple jasmine flower, he would not feel that it was very beautiful, and it would not even attract people's attention. But hundreds of thousands, millions of purple jasmine flowers suddenly covered the entire snowy plains, covering Xiaohua's field of vision. What was even more unusual was that when the afterglow of the setting west sprinkled on the flower petals, that stunning purple color mixed with mournful blood red, truly filling the entire heaven and earth with sorrow. Xiaohua's heart suddenly gave birth to a burst of sadness. Looking at the rising and falling waves of purple flower petals under the gentle breeze, he secretly said, "For 10,000 years, for 100,000 years, I don't know how many cultivators and swordsmen have been buried here. And I don't know how much blood has been spilled here. Every stalk of purple jasmine flower is most likely the illusion of a living person, and every tiny petal is most likely a drop of their blood. Even though they have fallen, their souls are unyielding. Even though they have fallen, their hearts and eyes are open. But unfortunately, what they saw was not light, they could only see frost, they could only see blood, they could only, year after year, day after day, they could only watch the battle between swordsmen and cultivators." After lamenting for a moment, Xiaohua calmed his heart and secretly said, "The Sword Tomb is one of the 10 most dangerous places in the country of Xi. Before I entered the Imperial Thunder sect, I had already heard of it. But I didn't expect the scenery here to be so magnificent. However, the magnificence is only on the surface, the endless danger is still on the inside. Just like this battle, even though I am lamenting those who deserve to die, I cannot be lenient in the slightest. Since I am unwilling to become a stalk of purple jasmine flower in this sword tomb, I can only let others do it. Perhaps after a few days the sword tomb will add another dead soul." Xiaohua released his Buddhist sense, and it gradually extended into the depths of the sword tomb like a tentacle. Precisely, when his Buddhist sense passed through these purple jasmine flowers, the sword tomb gradually gave birth to a kind of sharp feeling, as if it wanted to cut his Buddhist sense apart. That kind of indescribable piercing pain transmitted over, forcing Xiaohua to have no choice but to withdraw his Buddhist sense. Xiaohua took a deep breath of the chilly and icy cold air. He knew that this place was still the edge of the sword tomb, and it was precisely the place where the violet jasmine flowers bloomed. If he went further in, he would surely arrive at the battlefield of sword cultivators and doubt cultivators. Not only were there numerous incomplete formations and sword formations from before, there were even numerous spatial rifts that had been created from the battles. These rifts were probably as numerous as the hairs on an ox, and it would be dangerous for anyone to go in. The snowy highlands have always been filled with water, and the spiritual chi of heaven and earth has always been abundant. But here, faint golden chi seeps out from the air. In the depths of the sword tomb, there are broken flying swords, and those flying swords are mixed with the remnant souls of sword cultivators who died for them. Day and night, these flying swords wailed in grief amidst the broken sword intent, and are also nourished by golden chi. This is the tomb of flying swords. Not to mention the Dao sect cultivators, even the sword cultivators of the Huan country wouldn't dare to rashly enter if they didn't have an extremely clear path. Xiaohua glanced at it, but he didn't have any thoughts of going deeper into the sword tomb. With a wave of his hand, he took out the jade slip, and immersed his divine sense into it to take a look. He smiled and said, "This young master wants to make some contributions to the sword tomb, so I'll plant a purple jasmine flower." After he finished speaking, he very carefully identified the direction, and flew along the edge of the purple jasmine flower towards a slightly higher mountain. After flying for an hour, night had already arrived. Xiaohua landed on the ground and looked around. Although this place was slightly higher than the other places, the purple jasmine flowers were still everywhere. Coincidentally, there was a small protrusion in the middle of the purple jasmine flowers, which seemed to be a large boulder. Xiaohua strolled over, and along the way, several purple jasmine flowers brushed past his Taoist robe. This place is great. Xiaohua floated up and sat on the boulder. He looked around and closed his eyes to regulate his breathing. The night gradually dispersed, and the entire world was shrouded in darkness. The originally purple sword tomb was now emitting bursts of blood red. This blood red replaced the allure of the purple during the day, and everything under the pitch-black night sky was dyed red. Oh! Purple! At night it becomes the color of blood! Xiaohua extended his hand into the sea of blood, and was rather puzzled. However, as far as his eyes could see, his surroundings were blood red. Moreover, that blood red was speckled, and it was several times weaker than the brilliance of the fireflies. When Xiaohua's gaze stopped at the purple jasmine flower beside him, he understood. The purple color of the purple jasmine flower during the day was its petals, and these purple petals were wrapped up. Now that it was night, the purple color of the petals could no longer be seen clearly. However, the blood-red color of the petals could still be seen. This blood-red color contained a brilliance, and naturally, during the night, it was the same as the petals. Thus, this part of the world was dyed in the color of blood. Magnificent! Sorrowful! Xiaohua sighed with emotion for a moment, then closed his eyes to regulate his breathing. Another hour later, the night was already as dark as ink. The night wind blew over the sword catacomb, and the purple jasmine flowers swayed along with the night wind. The color of blood was even more like a rippling sea of blood. Xiaohua's body flickered with a faint, almost invisible protective golden light. He was like a small boat in the sea of blood, drifting indeterminately. -9. Chapter 2571. There seemed to be a breeze around Xiaohua. This breeze was different from the sound of ordinary wind, and it was also completely different from the night wind. The night wind only blew the purple jasmine flowers and raised the blood waves of the sword mound. It couldn't shake Xiaohua's protective brilliance, and it couldn't even stir Xiaohua's tranquil state of mind. However, this breeze quietly arrived and very strangely blew into the light protecting his body. Xiaohua's heart set off ripples. He suddenly opened his eyes, and a rather desolate feeling came from his skin. This was something Xiaohua normally couldn't sense. Could it be that there's something else in this sword mound? Xiaohua's eyes were like stars. He coldly swept his left side, and then closed them again. Open! Xiaohua gathered his Buddhist consciousness between his eyes. There was a mark of the previous Dharma eye. Generally, soul threads would pass through here. Although the delirium Dharma eye was useful, Xiaohua basically didn't know how to control it, so he always wanted to use it to control the Dharma eye. But this time, Xiaohua was disappointed. The Dharma eye mark didn't open because of his mantra. Instead, there was a piercing pain coming from his glabella. Forget it. I'm afraid that this young master's luck has been used up. Xiaohua shook his head. It seems that this Dharma eye mark isn't easy to control. I'll wait until I have a corresponding secret technique. Thinking, Xiaohua opened his left hand and waited for the delirium Dharma eye to open. Sure enough, threads of blue brilliance mixed with silver brilliance drifted around him. It was very obvious. Furthermore, there were strands of cotton-like green brilliance floating around his body. Xiaohua was already familiar with the blue and silver brilliance. It should be the water and metal attribute spiritual energy of heaven and earth. But that green brilliance wasn't the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It seemed to be gathering with a purpose. Xiaohua even looked into the distance, and saw that there was actually even more green brilliance gathering around him. Seeing this, Xiaohua already understood in his heart. No wonder Guyu said that this place wasn't suitable for cultivators to come. Not only is the metal attribute spiritual energy of heaven and earth somewhat troublesome, but the swordsman's vengeful soul also has an impact on cultivators' cultivation. If it wasn't this young master's fault, if it was someone else, their cultivation would be disturbed and their cultivation would also be damaged. Finished thinking, Xiaohua stretched out his hand and was about to slap his forehead. Just as he was about to release the Buddha's saraira, his heart moved, and his mind entered the mysterious dark clouds. At this moment, Little White's soul was dancing rhythmically, bringing Xiaohua's trace of primordial spirit to the top of the sky. "Little White, I'll take you out to eat something," Xiaohua said in his heart. Then, the soul thread wrapped around Little White. Although Little White heard Xiaohua's voice, it didn't open its eyes. Even the moment the soul thread touched its body, Little White's soul slightly trembled. However, when the soul thread flickered, the rhythmic soul power sent Little White out of its body. Roar! Little White immediately raised its head and let out a weak dragon roar. Immediately, its entire soul body danced like the sky. This dance was very normal in the sky, but in this night sky, it was completely different. Following the rhythm of the undulations, circles of undulations slowly rippled out with Little White's soul body as the center. An indescribable suction force was born along with the undulations, spreading far away. Obviously, the wandering souls that were attracted by Xiaohua were immediately frightened when they encountered the undulations. A kind of instinct was born from the wandering souls, just like a drowning person, trying their best to escape from the undulations. However, the undulations were like a firm fishing hook. Once it caught a fish or shrimp, no matter how big or small it wouldn't let it go. Those strands of green brilliance of different sizes followed the suction force and entered Little White's soul body. Every time a strand of wandering soul entered, Little White's soul body would emit a faint light. This little white dragon is different from the fire ape's soul. It doesn't need to devour, and can directly use its soul body to devour wandering souls? This seems to be somewhat similar to my immortal body bestowment technique. Seeing that Little White's soul body was becoming brighter and brighter, and was beginning to condense bit by bit, Xiaohua was relieved. He continued to sit cross-legged and began his own homework, letting Little White Dragon nourish itself here. The night was very long, and the night was also very short. When Xiaohua opened his eyes again, the horizon was already slightly bright. Little White Dragon seemed to be a little tired as it sat in the air. After a night of nourishment, there weren't any obvious changes, but the condensation of the soul body could be felt even when Xiaohua released the soul strands. More than 10 days passed in a row. Xiaohua rarely had a quiet time to cultivate. Other than releasing Little White Dragon's soul body at night, he had been cultivating quietly. From time to time, he would take out the invisible golden sword and use it according to the sword technique in Qingjian's memory. Although this invisible sword wasn't as marvelous as Qingjian's, it had the advantage of being invisible. Xiaohua had the experience of using the execution dream, so using this invisible sword was very easy. Of course, in Xiaohua's space, there was a jade slip given to him by the arrogant 10th layer Qi refining disciple Yutong when he sneaked out of the Huanhua sect. Xiaohua also took it out when he was cultivating. Sure enough, the layer of mysterious restriction gradually disappeared not long after the jade slip was taken out. However, when Xiaohua's divine sense swept through it, he didn't find anything special. There was only a location, a special symbol, and a simple technique. Is this guy sending this young master to his death? Xiaohua looked at it, then very carelessly threw it into the space. This was because he noticed an extremely special phenomenon. This was the Ganoderma horse. Before Xiaohua sent the Ganoderma horse into the space, the Ganoderma horse was somewhat injured. However, it still maintained the appearance of a Ganoderma horse. After Xiaohua sent it into the space, the Ganoderma horse actually reverted back to the appearance of a 10,000-year-old Lingji. It could no longer transform. Could it be that I should first go to the thunder that Dai encountered? Although the Ganoderma horse didn't encounter any heavenly thunder when it reverted back to its original state, Xiaohua still had some understanding in his heart. Perhaps this young master's space, the rules are still a bit strange. Thinking about the growth of the spiritual grass in his space, Xiaohua could only bitterly smile. He returned his thoughts to cultivation. His current realm was only foundation establishment. The distance from touching the heavenly Tao was really too far. What was the use of thinking too much? Next, Xiaohua was happy again. He finally found the secret technique to use the execution dream and mountain splitter flying swords at the same time. That mysterious sword cultivation secret technique nearly doubled the speed of the execution dream and mountain splitter flying swords. It far exceeded Xiaohua's previous expectations. When Xiaohua was investigating Zhonghaoren that day, because of the critical moment, Xiaohua didn't have any other divine ability to use. He could only use the execution dream and mountain splitter flying swords that he had just comprehended a little. The results were surprisingly good. Not only was the speed astonishing, but the strength also increased. It actually injured Yun Zhaocheng's flame dragon body, forcing Yun Gaocheng to not dare to fight and flee in panic. This is just two butterflies fluttering in the air. Xiaohua looked at the execution dream and mountain splitter flying swords that were like two cheerful butterflies, attached to each other and pulling each other along. They fluttered among the purple flowers. He couldn't help but think, if the 9 sword pills were repaired, then 9 stars would transit the sun. Then, what kind of momentum would that be? Those are the flying swords of Li Xiubai, the so-called sword Immortal. I reckon that even a nascent soul cultivator might not be able to block one of them. Ha ha ha. When he thought of being able to kill a nascent soul cultivator in the future, Xiaohua's mouth couldn't close. Although he really didn't know how long this future was, if there was a path of hope, would he still be afraid of thorns and dangers? Could it be that Marshal Kun's jade slip is wrong? When Xiaohua calmed down, he frowned and looked into the distance. Right now, the swordsmen and cultivators must be fighting a bloody battle to the death. Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao aside, what about Fairy Hong Xia? If I can stay by her side and block some wind and rain for her, that's also good. As he thought, Xiaohua's gaze landed on the purple flowers again. Could it be that the feelings of cultivators are like this? Although there is mutual affection, there are also separation and reunion involuntarily. If two people have feelings for each other for a long time, why would they be together every day and night? However, the words were so pleasant to hear. Putting aside the dangers of the Xiaoyu continent, without each other's protection, it was extremely easy to fall. It was inevitable that regret would arise in his heart. Even if there was no danger, a person's heart was fickle. It was hard to guarantee that there wouldn't be any changes. Dui Qiming loved Cui Hongshan wholeheartedly, but when others obstructed her, it was inevitable that her heart would be obstructed. If I hadn't killed Tu Hong and pushed both of them into the middle foundation establishment stage, allowing her to see the foundation of my myriad Thunder Valley, I'm afraid that Dui Qiming, who had experienced this unforeseen event, would have some thoughts in her heart. Of course, these are all my wild guesses. Perhaps Dui Qiming is as loyal as Cui Hongshan, just like Fairy Hong Xia in the past. I was only a Qi refinement cultivator, but she liked me so much that she didn't hide her preferences in front of everyone in the Feather Immortal Assembly. With such a wife, what else can I ask for in this life? The corners of Xiaohua's mouth secretly revealed a trace of a smile. And Shue, the most. At this moment, Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and his figure flew up from the big rock. As his figure gradually flew into the sky, his appearance and figure gradually changed, revealing the appearance of a martial Kuan. In the northeast direction, 2 faint figures appeared on the horizon. When they got closer, 2 divine senses swept over. As soon as the divine senses swept over Xiaohua, they immediately locked onto him. After circling around for a while, they withdrew. Xiaohua quietly stood in midair. He didn't release his divine senses, only releasing his Buddhist sense to scan the area around him for fear that the newcomers would have some hidden tricks. However, when the 2 people flew closer, Xiaohua could already see clearly that both of them were tall and thin. However, one was an old man with white hair and a beard, and the other was a cultivator dressed in camouflage robes. Xiaohua frowned slightly, but then his brows relaxed. The old man with white hair and a beard was in the early gold core stage. When Xiaohua was being chased by Reverend Jingyu, he had used his Buddhist sense to see him. He was the disciple who delivered the flying boat to Reverend Jingyu. -9. Chapter 2572. That's Hu Guanqing! Xiao Hua could see the arrogance on Hu Guanqing's face from afar. He could imagine how Hu Guanqing had treated Zhong Tianyao back in Zhongling Mountain Village. He had forced a golden core cultivator to hand over the materials he used to repair his ancestral artifact. How could an ordinary cultivator be so ruthless? However, although Hu Guanqing's arrogance could not be concealed, he was doing his best to conceal it. There was a trace of respect on his face, and he even flew slightly slower than the Miao cultivator, as if he was letting the latter go first. Strange, where did this Miao cultivator come from? How could he make Hu Guanqing act so modestly? Could he be a nascent soul senior? Xiao Hua muttered to himself as he looked at the Miao cultivator. His heart trembled, but this thought only flashed through his mind. Did a nascent soul senior need to wear a Miao cultivator? However, Xiao Hua suddenly complained in his heart. Damn it, Hu Guanqing brought this person here. Even if he's wearing a Miao cultivator, who knows if Marshal Kun has come in contact with him? It's fine if he doesn't know him, but if he does, how am I supposed to talk to him? Forget it. A trace of ruthlessness flashed through Xiao Hua's eyes. Who cares who he is? Since he's here, he can't blame me for being ruthless. I can't be bothered to say anything to them. I'll just kill them all. Thus, Xiao Hua rushed towards the two. The Dream Executioner and the Mountain Splitter were already in his mouth, ready to kill them in one blow. However, just as Xiao Hua was about to attack, Hu Guanqing suddenly flew a few feet forward and transmitted his voice. Marshal Kun, don't put on a poker face. This is an important person. Hurry up and welcome him. Don't be rude. Yes. When Xiao Hua heard this, he hurriedly put away the two flying swords and replied. The ruthlessness on his face was replaced by a smile, and he stepped forward respectfully. Putting on an act? Xiao Hua liked it the most. Being respectful was his specialty. How could he not join in the fun? Seeing how obedient Marshal Kun was, Hu Guanqiu was also slightly stunned. However, he was also very happy. With a smile on his face, he said in a clear voice, Marshal Kun, why aren't you coming over to greet the Alliance leader's envoy? Alliance Master? Xiao Hua was stunned. For a moment, he didn't even know which Alliance Master or which envoy it was. However, he quickly lowered his head and bowed in midair. Imperial Thunder Sect's Marshal Kun greets the envoy. All right, forget it. The emissary's face seemed to show a smile like a spring breeze. He sped up and flew in front of Xiao Hua. He very gently helped Xiao Hua up and said with a smile, Fellow Taoist Kun is too polite. I've heard of fellow Taoist's name long ago, but I never had the chance to meet you. Now that I've seen you today, you're indeed a dragon among men. You're exactly the person the Alliance Master values. Who is this? He only said that he was an emissary and didn't even mention his name. He kept calling him Alliance Master. Which Alliance Master is this Alliance Master? Xiao Hua cursed inwardly, but he still humbly smiled apologetically and said, I am just a small gold core cultivator. How could I enter the Alliance Master's eyes? Only a cultivator with an outstanding cultivation like the envoy can be the Alliance Master's right-hand man. Ha ha ha, Marshal Kun, oh Marshal Kun, when I told you about the Alliance Master that day, you didn't believe me. You even laughed and scolded me for being a bluff. Now you've thrown me aside as soon as you see the envoy. You're actually so intimate with the envoy. This is really beyond my expectations, Hu Guanfu said with a chuckle, as if to express his presence. However, Xiao Hua's heart thumped again. He knew that things weren't good. From Marshal Kun's jade slip, he saw that Marshal Kun had handed over the refining method of the Thunder Boat to Hu Guanfu here. He also learned that Hu Guanfu had the materials to repair the Grand Cosmos shifting token. That was why he came here to meet Hu Guanfu. Moreover, he also had the idea of attacking Hu Guanfu as soon as he saw him. He didn't think much about the relationship between the two of them. However, now that he heard Hu Guanfu's words, it seemed the two of them weren't as simple as he thought. There was actually a so-called Alliance Master and envoy involved. What exactly was going on? Fellow Taoist who has always been a man of his word. How can I take your word seriously? If I didn't see the envoy with my own eyes, how could I believe you? Marshal Kuan said with a cold snort. Fellow Taoist Kuan. The envoy clapped his hands and took out a triangular token from his storage bag. He handed it over and said with a smile, This is the Alliance Master's token. You can check it. No need, no need, Xiaohua said as he stretched out his hand. He was very curious about who the Alliance Master was. However, just as his hand was about to touch the token, the envoy pulled his hand back and didn't allow him to touch it. At this moment, Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He pondered whether or not he should snatch the item. However, this thought only flashed through his mind. Alliance leader, the leader of an alliance. He was probably more powerful than any cultivation sect. He couldn't even afford to offend a sect, so how could he dare to offend the leader of an alliance? He just wanted Hu Guanfu's materials to refine the Grand Cosmos shifting token. So what if he didn't take Hu Guanfu's life today? This Hu Guanfu is lucky, Xiaohua thought and smiled awkwardly. He swept out his divine sense and immersed it into the token. Buzz! In Xiaohua's divine sense, a mountain-like pressure came from the token. A large fall word flashed and appeared in Xiaohua's mind. Damn it, this is too powerful! Xiaohua was shocked and hurriedly withdrew his divine sense. His face was a little pale. Seeing Xiaohua like this, a smile flashed across the envoy's face. He flipped his hand and put the token into his bag. He said, Fellow Taoist Kuan, you have seen the token. Do you have any other questions? No, no! Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand and said, The Alliance Master's methods are indeed powerful. I can't compare. I've really learned something. Hee. The envoy nodded with a smile and didn't say anything else. Xiaohua glanced at Hu Guanfu, who had a complacent expression on his face, and said with a smile, Lord Envoy, I wonder why you came all the way here. Do you have any orders for me? Although Xiaohua didn't seem to care too much about it, he felt as if he wanted to stretch out a small hand in his heart and pull out some secrets about Hu Guanju from this emissary's mouth. Unexpectedly, the envoy still smiled and shook his head. He said, I don't have anything to do. I just saw that the sword cultivators outside the Sky Patrol City were fighting with our cultivators. I found a job and came to take a look on behalf of the Alliance Master. What a coincidence! I came to the Sword Tomb because I met you. I thought, Fellow Taoist Kun is good, so I led you here, Hu Guanfu said with a smile. The key is that I heard fellow Taoist who mentioned fellow Taoist Kun of the Imperial Thunder Sect. I admire him. The envoy seized the opportunity to flatter Marshal Kuan. Thank you for thinking so highly of me. Xiaohua saw that the envoy was tight-lipped, and knew that it was unlikely to get anything out of him. He said to Hu Guanfu, Since fellow Taoist who has come to keep the appointment, have you prepared those things? Of course. Hu Guanfu didn't seem to suspect anything. He took out a storage bag from his sleeve and handed it to Xiaohua. He said with a smile, The things you want are inside. Take a look. All right. Xiaohua took the storage bag and looked inside with his divine consciousness. He saw that there were only sleeve jade slips and a lot of refining materials. There weren't any materials for refining the Grand Cosmos shifting token. After he took a look at the jade slips, he realized that the jade slips contained some refining secret techniques. One of the jade slips recorded the method to repair the Grand Cosmos shifting token. Damn it, I see! Xiaohua cursed. It turned out that Marshal Kuan wanted to use the refining method of the Thunderbolt to exchange for the refining secret techniques, and the method to repair the Grand Cosmos shifting token. He didn't want to exchange the materials for the Grand Cosmos shifting token. What should I do now? Xiaohua smiled bitterly. You have to take a good look at these secret techniques. There are some refining methods for flying Dharma artifacts that Master collected with great difficulty, Hu Guanfu said with a smile. Did you bring the things that Master wanted? Of course. Xiaohua was also helpless. He stretched out his hand, took out a storage pouch that he had prepared a long time ago, and handed it over. Very good! A pleased look appeared on Hu Guanxin's face, but he then asked curiously, Didn't you say that you've gathered some other materials? Why didn't you bring them? Xiaohua understood that Hu Guanfu was talking about the materials for repairing the Grand Cosmos shifting token. He thought for a while and said awkwardly, I was going to the Seven Extremes mountain range. However, I remembered my agreement with fellow Hu Guanfu and came here in a hurry. I forgot those things in the Sky Patrol City Station. How could you be so careless? Hu Guanfu frowned. How could you not bring those things with you? Xiaohua's face turned cold when he saw that Hu Guanfu was blaming him. Forget it. I'll go with you in a while. Hu Guanfu waved his hand. Master is very concerned about these things. You'd better bring them here as soon as possible. Xiaohua was moved when Hu Guanfu mentioned Taoist Jingru. He was about to speak when Hu Guanfu seemed to have thought of something and transmitted his voice. That's right. About the matter I told you last time, let's stop for the time being. That guy hid his strength too well. I didn't expect his cultivation to be so powerful. He actually... Cough, cough. I'm sure you've seen it too. He's made many contributions in the Tao Cultivator War. If you act rashly, you'll disrupt Master's plan. I've always wanted to send you a message talisman about this. However, this is a serious matter. It's better to tell you personally. Fellow Hu Guanfu, you're talking about. Xiaohua's heart trembled. He seemed to have sensed something and asked deliberately. Hu Guanfu looked at him strangely. He smiled and transmitted his voice. Of course it's about the Foundation establishment disciple of your Imperial Thunder Sect, Xiaohua. So you've already forgotten about him. Haha, that's good too. I don't want to alert the enemy. So it's because of this guy. Xiaohua understood at once. He had thought about it for a long time but still couldn't figure it out. Today, he actually got the answer he never expected. -9. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.